Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Today we will start chapter 13 of the Ādi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we'll quickly say our Mangalacharan prayers and begin the class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you very much for putting up with my late coming. So we're busy with some meeting. Okay, so we will start the 13th chapter of the Ādi Leela, and this is where the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually begins to be described. So actually we did a kind of summary study of this chapter on the Gaura Purnima day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day, which was on March 7th, and but we did not go into detail verse by verse and all that. I just read through the translations. So we'll read through the purpose and everything today. All right. Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 13, summary. The 13th chapter describes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. The entire Ādi Leela describes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's household life, and similarly the Antya Leela describes the life in the sannyas order. Within the Lord's Antya Leela, the first 6 years of his sannyas life are called the Madhya Leela. During this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu toured South India, went to Vrindavan, returned from Vrindavan and preached the Sankirtan movement. Now here a small note here. Now the Ādi Leela is about his household past until his household life, which is 24 years. So as we know, I don't know if you know, maybe most of you know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in this world for 48 years. And the first 24 years, he was childhood and household life. And then he took sannyas. And the next 24 years, he was living as a sannyasi. Now, the first 6 years, he was traveling and preaching and taking darshan of all the different holy places in South India and also in the north. Vrindavan he went. Mostly South India he traveled a lot, and north only Vrindavan and Bengal. Of course, he is from there. So now, the next 17 years, the last 17 years, 17 to 18 years, he spent in Jagannath Puri. So then that is there he exhibited this, pastimes of transcendental madness in love of Krishna. So if you see the Ādi Leela, although it is said that the pastimes until the end of household life are mentioned in this, but you see it is mentioned in very sankshepita form. That means very succinct form, in a very brief way. Because as you know, this is the start of the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we are in the chapter number 13, and there are 17 chapters only in this Ādi Leela. So only 5 chapters are dedicated to the pastimes of the Lord in his household life out of the 17 chapters. So the first 12 chapters are there to establish the supremacy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then the significance of the whole Panchatattva and the devotees that come under these parampara. So all that is mentioned in the first 12 chapters. So a very solid foundational basis is set to establish Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the incarnation for this Kali Yuga, beyond any doubt. And then only the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described here. Compare it to Vrindavan Das Thakur's, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur's Chaitanya Bhagavat. He starts off with the pastimes of the Lord. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami found it necessary to establish Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead with Shastric references, with all kinds of references. So, anyway, with that background, it is, actually, it is prudent to understand the background a little bit there. Vrindavan Das Thakur in his Chaitanya Bhagavat spent most of the book describing the beginning pastimes of the Lord, starting from his childhood, also to his youth, and also until the end of his married life. Whereas in Chaitanya Charitamrita, since Vrindavan Das Thakur had already covered those subjects, and it happened this way that Vrindavan Das Thakur was going on in great detail, starting from all the pastimes. But then he found out that okay, this book is going it's going to be very, very voluminous. So towards the end of the Leela or the Antalila, he did not elaborate as much. He quickly summarized the later pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who wrote this Chaitanya Charitamrita after Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote his Chaitanya Bhagavat, took the opposite approach. So he briefly only summarized and mentioned the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his early life, and the bulk of the book is the later pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And apart from that, he provided solid philosophical and scriptural basis for the incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which, in the opinion of, it's my humble opinion, but also in the opinion of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is very essential, because in Kali Yuga there will be so many imposter Bhagavans, and we should be able to defend our claim that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an incarnation of Krishna. And therefore, that basis to give solid confidence, and not just confidence, the solid basis on which one can confidently develop one's devotional service, that foundational basis has to be given. Otherwise, if we as devotees are in this movement and then people are challenging left, right, center, oh, how can you say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God? He's just another sadhu. So, if we cannot defend ourselves, then our faith will be gone, and we may believe them. So it is not that we make up something; we have to actually have the shastric backing. And of course, we are not expert to study all the shastras, and therefore this is where we remain indebted to the great devotees, the sages, the acharyas, who have left these books. Now, just a small note again there. Srila Prabhupada took this movement all over the world. Rupa Goswami, the personal disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami even, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, all very powerful acharyas. But they did not preach all over the world. Does that mean they did something less? No. Prabhupada could easily go and preach all over the world because the foundation is already set by these acharyas. The philosophical basis, the scriptural basis, all the arguments and the answers to that, everything. That's why it is called Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunao Sadharma Samsthapakao. The 6 Goswamis have studied all the scriptures, everything. And then they have gleaned all the references, all the evidence to not only establish Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as God, but to establish his philosophy as the highest philosophy, everything. Solidly establishing the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya to actually catapult it to the next stage, which is unbounded expansion, which is what Srila Prabhupada started. And the service is still open because there are still, millions of people that do not know who Krishna is and who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. So these things have to be properly understood, and therefore it is very important that they set the the scriptural foundation in place. Okay, so reading on. A learned Brahmana named Upendra Mishra, who resided in the district of Srihatta, was the father of Jagannath Mishra, who came to Navadvip to study under the direction of Nilambar Chakravarti and then settled there after marrying Nilambar Chakravarti's daughter Sachi Devi. Srila Sachi Devi gave birth to 8 children, all daughters, who died one after another immediately after birth. So, quite trying circumstances. After her 9th pregnancy, she gave birth to a son, who was named Vishwarupa. Then, in 1407 Shaka era, which is 1486 AD, in the full moon evening of the month of Phalguna, with the constellation of Simha, Leo, on the horizon, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as the son of Sri Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra. After hearing of the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, learned scholars and brahmanas, bringing many gifts, came to see the newborn baby, Nilambar Chakravarti, who was a great astrologer. Came to see the newborn baby. Nilambar Chakravarti, who was a great astrologer, I did not put a full stop there. So came to see the newborn baby, Nilambar Chakravarti. Absolutely doesn't make any sense. So, came to see the newborn baby. Nilambar Chakravarti, who was a great astrologer, immediately prepared a horoscope, and by astrological calculation, he saw that the child was a great personality. This chapter describes the symptoms of this great personality. So now, here, Jagannath Mishra came to study under the direction of Nilambar Chakravarti and settled there after marrying Nilambar Chakravarti's daughter Sachi Devi. Now, I have found a renewed interest to understand Indian history because, unfortunately, we have been in Indian syllabus in the history that we learned in school. We were taught a very skewed history. All that I remember from the Indian history that I have learned in school is that there was Humayun, there is Akbar, there is Shah Jahan, there is Aurangzeb, there is Tipu Sultan, there is Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and Muhammad Ghori a little bit, and that's all I remember. A little bit of Bhagat Singh here, a little bit of course, Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma so-called. Now I understand he's absolute crazy nutcase. Honestly, to be very honest, the things that he has done is unbelievably crazy. So anyway, this is what I learned. This is what I remember, and a little bit about the First World War, Second World War. Nothing about our culture. Now, when I read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and when anybody reads, we have information that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated a certain scholar of the name Keshav Kashmiri, who, as the name suggests, he's from the Kashmir region. Now, and Prabhupada mentions in the purport many times that Kashmiri Brahmins were the most aristocratic Brahmins, and it was a seat of learning, Kashmir. And also another seat of learning was Nadia, this West Bengal. That's why even if you see in the intellectuals of during the British times and all of that, many of them came from Bengal. It is not that other places did not have any intellectual capacity, but very well known. Maybe that's also because the way history was, fabricated. Of course, it could be, but there are many well-known intellectuals from the Bengal area. And during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, it was a center of learning, Nadia, this whole Navadvip, and it was, full with people who were interested in learning. And this is why Jagannath Mishra came to study under Nilambar Chakravarti. And even, okay, another aspect of Indian history that we learned, a very, very whitewashed, distorted history that we learned. I remember reading a little bit, one small paragraph about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. it's a miracle that it even made into that into the textbooks. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, I think, which is what I remember, a small paragraph was written about him. That's all. We do not know actually many things about our own history. And when I learned some of the history in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was actually I had never understanding of this. It was completely disconnected to me. You know, yeah, Vittal. So Sudhanshu is saying about Shivaji Maharaj. Yeah, Shivaji also we were not taught. We were not taught. I learned about Shivaji Maharaj only because of my Hindi class. I was learning Hindi as a third language, not even second language. So there I learned about Shivaji. One chapter was about Shivaji's conquest and all that. So some information, but not like very much. Hmm. And similarly, there are many. Like for example, in Manipur, there is Vaishnav culture, right? And actually, there was this king. I did not know anything about it. Okay, there Vaishnav culture. Like, how was it preserved? I would actually want to know. I'm interested in that. I found that renewed interest in understanding a little bit about Indian history from our perspective, our Vedic perspective, not some invaders who came and invaded and basically ruined our culture a lot. And now, then I understand. Okay, Sudhanshu is saying, but now in Maharashtra board we have whole chapter about Mahaprabhu and Sant Tukaram. I really appreciate that. That should happen. In fact, Prabhupada was mentioning that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's contemporary was Tukaram. His sampradaya is called the Varkari Sampradaya, which also the name Varkari Sampradaya, that name, I only found out about maybe a month ago, maximum. I never knew all these traditions that, which are actually, you know, worth reading about, you know. Um, like, another thing, when I go to Vrindavan, when anybody goes to Vrindavan, you can see the ruins of the Radha Govinda Mandir of Rupa Goswami. I mean, such a magnificent temple, and today is still in ruins. I do not know why it is still in ruins. I think I know now, actually. And I'll explain a little bit about that. I'm going on a rant about Indian history, but please bear with me. I think this is important in the context of how we can understand all these things. Rupa Goswami's Mandir, Radha Govind Mandir, destroyed. And the deity was, of course, shifted to Jaipur. And similarly, we have other Goswami deities, Radha Madan Mohanji, who went to Karoli. And there are other Radha Vinod, Radha, who else? They are all in the Jaipur, in different places, in small temples. They were in the, you know, temple of, in Vrindavan. Even the Nathdwara temple, that deity, the Srinathji, is actually coming from Vrindavan. Do you know? Nathdwara in Jaipur, that famous temple is actually the deity from Vrindavan. So, okay, we read only in Chaitanya Charitamrita and subsequent literature that, okay, lives of the six Goswamis, okay, Maharaj Man Singh came and, he helped construct the temple under the auspices of Rupa Goswami. That we learned only in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And, some lives of the six Goswamis biography. But I did not learn this in the mainstream history that we were taught. I would want to learn that. How it came to be that these temples were destroyed and then the deities were shifted. It's a huge struggle at that time when the Mohammedans were completely desecrating the whole Indian temples and Indian, deities, Krishna's deities and also demigods deities, everything. The whole culture was being dismantled. And thousands upon thousands, millions of people actually laid down their lives trying to protect. And all that was nothing of that was mentioned to us. So, we also lose context. You see, the holy places, the pilgrimage sites have to be preserved. And if you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually asked Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami to excavate the holy places because they were nowhere to be found anymore. How did they come to be nowhere to be found? How did it come to that state of affairs? Probably the Muslim rulers, who completely desecrated the whole thing. And maybe other causes also. But somehow or other, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Rupa Goswami to revive. And I think that's a very important project in all of India. And I learned something. I mean, this kind of discrimination is still going on in India, even now against Hindus, Sanatana Dharma followers. That the funding, whatever you give to, suppose you go to Tirupati, everybody likes to give in a hundi, so much donations. Nothing goes to the preaching of Sanatana Dharma. Everything is taken by the government. And they're doing whatever they want. So our dharma, there's no protection at all. In fact, when in 2017, we went to, I was on a pilgrimage with other devotees, and I actually vlogged a lot of it, but I never released it on our channel, on my channel as vlogs. They are still buried as footages on my, SD card, and of course now in my hard drive. And there, I was talking about Siddhabakul tree when we went to, I think it was kind of a theme when I was going through these different places. The site of Sridhar Swami, who is Orissa, near the Shirjora Gopinath Mandir. We saw the Samadhi of Sridhar Swami, great Acharya, first commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vaishnava commentator. So when I saw all these places in such dilapidated conditions, I was thinking, and I actually spoke to the camera. Until now, I did not release it for some reason. And at that time, I was not exposed to the atrocities that actually happened to the Sanatana Dharma community over the past few centuries. But I was just venting my kind of a little bit frustration at why the Indian government is not taking any, efforts to revive such exquisite, such ancient history you will never find anywhere in the world. So I was talking to the camera and I was saying that, Indian government should have a department which should revive all these places, and not only the places themselves, but all the history that comes with that place. And all the history that was recorded. And I just recently found out that, Nalanda University, I heard that Nalanda University was the first university or whatever. Of course, I don't exactly agree to the word of first university, because our knowledge has been handed down through the parampara since time immemorial. So, anyway, manuscripts of a lot of scriptures were kept in that Nalanda University in somewhere in Uttar Pradesh or Bihar somewhere. And apparently, when it was burned down by a person called Bakhtiyar, a Muslim ruler, when he set it ablaze, he and his men, it took 8 months for that whole university to be completely burned to ashes. That much amount of books were there, and now no more. So just imagine the kind of knowledge that is missing now. And ironically, that place where Nalanda University is there is now like kind of a deserted place. You have to, the nearest railway station is like about 50 kilometers away, it seems. And the railway station is of a town of the name Bakhtiyarpur. The Bakhtiyar is the one, he's a Muslim ruler who actually set it ablaze. And the city is named after him, the town. So a lot of revival of the historical knowledge has to be done in India. And it will help, because it will help in chronicling the whole history, and also the help revive the places of pilgrimage, and not only the places of pilgrimage themselves, but also the stories behind, not stories, the histories behind that. The other day I was looking at Google, Kishkinda, and there was this place of Hanuman birthplace. Have you ever heard? Who has gone to a Hanuman birthplace? I never knew it existed. There was this Anjana, this hill, and then there was this rock and everything. And it looks like, yeah, whatever, kind of place. Like, make it nice. And, of course, there's a temple there. But I think, more funding, more popularizing of these, places, and the rich culture that the spiritual, the transcendent culture that comes with it, all these are necessary. India should become, Bharat should become the capital of, the spiritual capital of the world. Of course, it is, but it is so distorted at this point, and people have all kinds of people. I mean, idiots are also coming out of India, Bharat, like this Sadhguru and similar other many other guys who, I mean, yeah, who he also tells some historical things and all that, but his whole point is he will misdirect them. So it's complete nonsense. So anyway, that was a rant. I just thought to mention it because you see Jagannath Mishra, who came to Navadvip to study under the direction of it's not just some random, okay, he went there because he liked. No, there was a whole culture behind that. And why Keshav Kashmiri came all the way to Navadvip to argue or debate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he defeated him. And these conquests, and how come? I don't even know until now. What is this? Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. I don't know the history of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. Like, how did he attain the title of Sarvabhauma? What was his early life? How he came? I want to know whom he defeated in debate and all these things. There should be a whole connection in all these historical accounts so that we can have a complete proper view of history. When I read, I did not actually think about it so much. When I read Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Rupa Goswami built the Radha Govind Mandir, and when you actually go to Vrindavan for the Radha Govind Mandir, till date, that Rupa Goswami Mandir has not been revived. It is still there in the dilapidated condition, as if we are celebrating the desecration of the temple, than you know reviving it. And I heard that Somnath and even Kashi Vishwanath temple was desecrated many, many times. And it was built many, many times as well. When it was desecrated, later on, when that ruler, somehow lost power, and again the Shivaji's empire, who was that? Some lady. She revived again the temple, constructed many, many times. Somnath. I mean, these were constructed many, many times. So why can't we construct that Rupa Goswami's Mandir? I think it should be done. I mean, I feel it should be done. So anyway, I'm in no way ready to do anything like that, but I mean, I don't have the wherewithal and anything. We are we are in a different mission here in Singapore, but I'm just putting it out there so that these things have to be taken up as projects because they reflect a lot of our heritage. I mean, if Rupa Goswami's Mandir, such a magnificent Mandir, what even was left? Whatever is left even now? Even that looks so magnificent. What to speak of? I mean, if you revive it and everything comes properly, and then it's a thriving temple, and if there is a whole preaching mission that is there, and I mean, how glorious it would be. So Ahalya Bai, yes, that is the lady, Ahalya Bai, not Bhai, Bai, Bai. So yeah, so these things have to be, I think, that's why I found some renewed interest in our history because it's very fascinating, very, very fascinating, and it connects. Now I get a much better context. The times of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like there was this Nawab Hussain Shah, and then we learned, right? We learned Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. They're very expert in Sanskrit and Persian and Bengali and Hindi. So I was like, wow, how come Persian somewhere else? Persia is somewhere. How can he learn Persian? Wow, wow. Now I know why it was necessary because the Muslim rulers at those times they made it mandatory that Persian must be learned because all government, every communication should be in Persian. That was their rule, and they brought people from Persia to actually, you know, um, teach the Indian people Persian. And there was also a motive behind that because they don't want to use Sanskritized words because they eventually refer to deities or some god, something like that. They don't want to do anything. They want to have their language, their way of thing. So they brought this thing, the whole language, the culture, and the economics, the everything they brought, their version of it. So this has to be revived. Has to be revived. So now I know why Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were very expert in Persian. They had to be. I was thinking it was a novel. Oh, that was novel. Okay, I'll also learn maybe French. Somebody may think. No, it was not some hobby that it was his hobby to learn Persian. No, no, no. It was necessary. And how the Hindus were serving the Muslims as prime ministers and responsible posts, and how the situation was like in those times. So, I mean, otherwise it's isolation. It's isolated history. Oh, this one history, one history. I'm not getting a full picture of the whole thing. So I think it's necessary. And some historians in India, they're actually taking up this. Like there is one author called Meenakshi Jain. She wrote a book called The Flight of Deities. How different deities. She actually narrated the story of different with evidences, recorded evidences of those deities from where to where to where to where they were taken, and what were the struggles that were of the devotees who took these deities everywhere, and how they established worship even under great secrecy because of the invasions and the kind of sacrifices they went through. So she is one of them, and another, I think, few others. They're doing this, reviving all those stories, which historical things. I mean, with evidences, they're giving all this. So I think it's important that we learn, and then so that actually, even in my early life, until I came to Krishna consciousness, there was no much pride in my own culture for me. I was also thinking it was cool to be like Westerner, like science and all of that. You know, I was more having faith in all that, than Bhagavad Gita. I never saw Bhagavad Gita before Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. That is a blessing. But I never knew that you can actually access a book, Bhagavad Gita. I thought it was somewhere in the caves in the mountains somewhere. Who knows? There was no proper, understanding of the whole thing at all. So this is why it has to be revived. How are they able to revive history without speculation? Okay, so they are. This is actually not. I mean, there are some speculated kind of recordings. So they will check with various sources, and it was recorded. It just did not make it into mainstream history in India that we learn in school. It was recorded. It's just not brought to the fore. So that is being revived. All the documents are being revived, and that's how they are kind of, yeah, this flight of deities and the rebirth of temples episodes from Indian history. So this is by Meenakshi Jain. And similar other historians there are who are trying to revive all these stories. And there is this Vikram Sampath, who also wrote a book called Brave Hearts of India. Of course, they have they are into this. They don't understand our religion properly, Sanatana Dharma, I have to admit. But at least the account of events that happened, the philosophy of it, Prabhupada is the answer. But the account of events that happened, so he explains in in the Brave Hearts of India, Brave Hearts of Bharat. I don't have the book, of course. I mean, I would like to get a copy to, at least have it on record. But so there is one chapter on the Vaishnavism in Manipur, and how this king actually, he was a brave king. He fought off many invasions and also revived the culture in the whole kingdom. And that would be a good model, to study, right? I mean, how they did it, because ultimately, that is our mission. We have to, kind of come to that point where whole countries have to be Krishna conscious. That is our mission, and then everything will be at peace. So it is good to learn that there is some king who did that. Okay? These histories are important. So okay, I think I have digressed a lot. Um, okay, so coming back here to the history. After hearing of the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, learned scholars and brahmanas, bringing many gifts, came to see the newborn baby. Nilambar Chakravarti, who was a great astrologer, immediately prepared a horoscope, and by astrological calculation, he saw that the child was a great personality. This chapter describes the symptoms of this great personality. So, okay, that is a summary. So, verse 1. Now only we're starting verse 1. सप्रसीदतु चैतन्यदेवो यस्य प्रसादतः तल्लीलावर्णने योग्यः सद्यः स्यादधमोऽप्ययम्. I wish the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even one who is fallen can describe the pastimes of the Lord. Purport. To describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Lord Sri Krishna, one needs supernatural power, which is the grace and mercy of the Lord. Without this grace and mercy, one cannot compose transcendental literature. Okay? By dint of the grace of the Lord, however, even one who is unfit for a literary career can describe wonderful transcendental topics. Description of Krishna is possible for one who is empowered. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tar Pravartan. Antilila 7.11. Unless endowed with the mercy of the Lord, one cannot preach of the Lord's name, fame, qualities, form, entourage, and so on. It should be concluded, therefore, that the writing of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami manifests specific mercy bestowed upon the author, although he thought of himself as the most fallen. We should not consider him fallen because he describes himself as such. So we should not consider himself fallen just because he says so. Rather, anyone who is able to compose such transcendental literature is our esteemed master. But a devotee, of course, he considers himself humbly as the most fallen. And if somebody calls him fallen, he does not get angry. Hey, how can you say I'm fallen? No. If he is always thinking he is the most fallen, and if somebody says, "Oh, thank you for reminding me," he will say. Of course, it doesn't mean that the other person should say. That is another offense, big offense. But, you know, if you are humble, then, we can pass through any situation with ease. जय जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य गौर चंद्र जयाद्वैत चंद्र जय जय नित्यानंद. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Advaita Chandra, all glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Jaya Jaya Gadadhar Jaya Srinivas Jaya Mukunda Vasudeva Jaya Haridas. All glories to Gadadhar Pandit, all glories to Srivas Thakur, all glories to Mukunda Prabhu and Vasudeva Prabhu, all glories to Haridas Thakur. Mukunda and Vasudeva are brothers, very great singers. Jaya Damodar Svarūpa Jaya Murāri Gupta Eshab Chandrodaya Tama Koilo Lupta. All glories to Svarūpa Dāmodara and Murāri Gupta. All these brilliant moons have together dissipated the darkness of this material world. Jai Shri Chaitanya Chandrer Bhakta Chandragan Sabar Prema Jyotsnaya Ujjvala Tribhuvan. All glories to the moons who are the devotees of the principal moon, Lord Chaitanya Chandra. Their bright moonshine illuminates the entire universe. Purport. It's interesting how Srila Prabhupada writes this purport. In this verse, we find the moon described as Chandragana, which is plural in number. This indicates that there are many moons. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.21, the Lord says, Nakshatranam aham shashi. Among the stars, I am the moon. All the stars are like the moon. Western astronomers consider the stars to be suns, but Vedic astronomers following the Vedic scriptures consider them moons. The sun has the ability to shine powerfully, and the moons reflect the sunshine and therefore look brilliant. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna is described to be like the sun. The Supreme Powerful is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna or Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his devotees are also bright and illuminating because they reflect the Supreme Sun. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.31 states, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoy Andhakar Jahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Radhikar. Krishna is bright like the sun. As soon as the sun appears, there is no question of darkness or nescience. Similarly, the present verse also describes that by the illumination of all the moons brightened by the reflection of the Krishna sun, or by the grace of all the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the entire world will be illuminated despite the darkness of Kali Yuga. Only the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can dissipate the darkness of Kali Yuga, the ignorance of the population of this age. No one else can do so. Bold statement, no one else can do so. We therefore wish that all the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement may reflect the Supreme Sun and thus dissipate the darkness of the entire world. So he immediately brought out a huge meaning out of this. I mean, this is pure devotee, you see. Chandragan, Bhakta Chandragan, Chaitanya Chandrer Bhakta Chandragan. So, devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is our mission. We have to take this mission very seriously. And the great acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, who spread this all over the world, we have to serve his mission and spread it further and everywhere. ऐटक ऐटक हिलो ग्रंथारंभे मुख बंध एभे को ही चैतन्य लीला क्रम अनुबंध. Thus I have spoken the preface of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now I shall describe Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in chronological order. प्रथमेट सूत्र रूपे कोरिये गणन पाठ्ये ताहा विस्तारी कोरिबो विवरण. First let me give पाठ्ये not पाठ्ये. प्रथमेट सूत्र रूपे कोरिये गणन पाठ्ये ताहा विस्तारी कोरिबो विवरण. First let me give a synopsis of the Lord's pastimes, then I shall describe them in detail. श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नवद्वीपे अवतरी 48 वत्सर प्रकट विहरी. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, adventing himself in Navadvip, was visible for 48 years, enjoying his pastimes. 1407 शके जन्मेर प्रमाण 1455 होइलो अंतर्धान. So even you see the dates are mentioned. And yeah, another point of this historical revival of historical records and restructuring, not restructuring, I think there is a word for that. What is that word? You know, where you go to a museum and then they'll make this animal look alive. The skin is actually of that of a real dead animal, but it looks like a real animal. There's a word for that. Please, if you know, kindly let me know in the comments. Maybe you can Google it. The art of making a dead animal look alive. And they stuff the skin of the dead animal with inside whatever liquid or whatever, and make it look like it's alive, and they preserve the skin, no, it doesn't decompose, so it looks like a real animal there or bird or whatever, but it's actually not. Automaton? No, I don't think that is the word. What is automaton? Animatronic? No. Animatronics is with electronics. You know, move things. No. What I'm saying is it's like a museum piece, a statue of say an elephant, but actually it's not a real elephant, or let's say a tiger, but it looks like a real tiger. The skin is that of a real tiger, but inside they stuff it with something, and then taxidermy. That is the word. Taxidermist? No, not mummification. Taxidermist. Taxidermy is the word. Taxidermist is one who does this. So, doing a kind of a taxidermy job, not exactly taxidermy, but to bring back the history in that context. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and I have repeated this many times. Yeah, taxidermy, that is the word. So, thank you for that. So, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I have said this many times, he always mentions, the railway stations, whenever we're talking about some, place of pilgrimage or the birth site of a particular acharya or something, he mentions the railway station nearby, the landmarks and how to go there. He mentions all these things. And we may say, oh, why is he mentioning these things? It's the philosophy that is important, not the place. But no, place is also as important. Why they should be only places of atheism and how to business districts and all these industrialization. Why should that be the only thing that should be there? Why not? I mean, the places of, I mean, the Lord and the pastimes of the devotees. Why not? Hmm. That only is the sign of an atheistic civilization. If only the industrial parts are magnified and the religious aspects are not. Center, if you see Jagannath Puri, you cannot have a building that is higher than Jagannath Puri temple. That is the culture. Temple should be the highest building, and from every part of the city, the temple should be visible. So people remember the Lord, not people remember the tall buildings where financial transactions are taking place, or other financial scams or whatever, and then people are remembering only money. That is Ravan. Ravan always remembering Sita. He doesn't want Ram. So these modern cities are like Lankas, Ravana's Lanka. What is that? Golden Lanka. So this is also same. Lanka was made all the buildings of gold. Here also, of course, it's not gold, but we're dealing with money, which is backed by gold, or which is basically about wealth, about power, about all of that. So how are we different from the Ravana's Lanka? So that's why these places have to be revived. Have to be. Instead of going to stupid holidays, say going to Bali or Phuket or some Switzerland, go to these places and learn something at least about life. That used to be the holidays of Vedic holiday. Vedic vacation means they go to pilgrimage. They want to de-stress their lives or whatever. Okay, go pilgrimage. So that is the whole idea. Of course, we're not against Switzerland or what. Everything is Krishna's creation. But people are going to just enjoy their senses. It should not be that way. Why heritage? I mean, I'm in Singapore. In Singapore, we have a footfall of tourists of about 7 million a year. And in India, the entire India, footfall of 4 million tourists a year. Singapore, became a country in 1965. Our Bharat is, since when? How many millions of years history it contains? And 4 million tourists. Here, 7 million. Singapore. And I'm seeing how they are preserving all those, buildings or whatever. They're preserving very nicely here. That effort should be there, and not just buildings. The whole culture has to be preserved. Every part of the culture, not just buildings, are just one part of the culture. What was happening inside those buildings, the temples, the worship, the learning that used to be happening there, all that culture centered around the temple, that should be revived. So here you see the astrological time of the birth and all the calculations, the numbering, everything is here. You see, such records are mentioned in our books. So anyway, in the year 1407 of Shaka era, 1486 AD, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and in the year 1455, which is Shakabda, which is Indian way of calculation, modern calculation. It is actually 75 years. If you want in AD, convert from Shaka to AD, you would add 78 to 79 years. Then you will get the AD figure. What is the number in AD? But in Bengal, there is another calculation, so differently they calculate. So whatever. 1534 AD, he disappeared from this world. So now sometimes I quiz devotees. I ask them, hey, which year Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took birth? They can't answer actually, but sometimes they can't answer. 1486 AD. So these things we must know. All these are mentioned, recorded in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. छब्बीस वत्सर प्रभु कोयल गृहवास निरंतर कोयल कृष्ण कीर्तन विलास. For 24 years, Lord Chaitanya lived in the Grihastha ashram, the household life, always engaging in the pastimes of the Hare Krishna movement. 26 वत्सर शेषे कोरिया संन्यास आर 26 वत्सर कोयलो नीलाचले वास. After 24 years, he accepted the renounced order of life, sannyas, and he resided for 24 years more at Jagannath Puri. तार मध्ये 6 वत्सर गमनागमन कभू दक्षिण कभू गौड़ कभू वृंदावन. Of these last 24 years, he spent the first 6 continually touring India, sometimes in South India, sometimes in Bengal, and sometimes in Vrindavan. अष्टादश वत्सर रहिला नीलाचल, अष्टादश वत्सर रहिला नीलाचल, नीलाचले कृष्ण प्रेम नामामृते भासाल सकले. For the remaining 18 years, he continuously stayed in Jagannath Puri, chanting the nectarean Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He inundated everyone there in a flood of love of Krishna. Satyam Chaudhary. Yes, in Assam also 500 years back there was a Vaishnava Acharya named Shankar Dev. Unfortunately, very few people know about him in India. Yeah, this is what I want to learn. So, it's good to know all these things. गार्हस्थ्ये प्रभुर्लीला आदिलीलाख्यान मध्य अंतलीला शेष लीलारद्वीनाम. The pastimes of his household life are known as Adilila and or the original pastimes. His later pastimes are known as the Madhyalila and Antilila or the middle and final pastimes. When we say original pastimes, it is not that the others are fake pastimes. Not that original. Another meaning of original is related to the origin or related to the birth and the beginning years and that. So basically in the beginning, the early pastimes. Not that others are made of Madhyalila, Antilila made up fake pastimes. No. So devotees, we also have to understand what these words mean. Otherwise, people can get on our case and then we don't know how to defend. This is not just to face others, it's just for our own understanding. Yeah. आदिलीला मध्य प्रभुर जते कचरित सूत्र रूपे मुरारी गुप्त करेला ग्रथित. All the pastimes enacted by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Ādi Leela were recorded in summary form by Murāri Gupta. See again, these records, historical records, are so important, and which is the reason why I also want to keep a record of what is happening in Singapore so that one day, maybe, I will be able to write a book of the Hare Krishna movement in Singapore. Or if I don't do it, maybe these notes will help future. But honestly, I have not been doing it. Vlogs actually are a good way to record these things in a modern way where you can have video content, um, you know, and it's kind of a progressive, like what Nimanita Prabhu is doing. So sometimes he just puts a vlog of Narasimha Chaturdashi 2023 in China. I mean, you may say, okay, that's not very significant. It's not like real preaching or something. There was a festival and people pour milk as Abhishek and this and that. Some kirtan happened in China. But do you understand how significant that is? Say 500 years later, we have these historical records or proofs where we have video evidence of how the people looked like at that time. And then they had this Abhishek going on in China. This is why vlogging, I think, is very important. This was my part of my thought when I was beginning vlogging. And if videos can be there, as records, of course, provided YouTube is still there, but we have to have, I think, archival copies of those videos and all that somehow or other. Whatever. I mean, it has to be preserved, but in written form, I think it will be preserved for a longer time because digital things may lose the memory or whatever. I don't know what will be the state of affairs of technology 200 years from now, 500 years from now. We don't know what will happen to those records. So archiving process, and you see Prabhupada's audio, he was insisting that his devotees record his conversations, his you know his everything, lectures and everything. How valuable are those resources today, right? We quote many times from here and there, right? So many things he said. So I mean, how valuable they become. When you are doing it, you will feel like a fool. Hey, this looks, I look awkward here. Everybody is listening to lecture. I'm putting one thing, I'm standing like this with a mic there. How many millions of souls will be benefited by that one action? When you are noting down something in a diary or a note, it will never look as something which is significant. Only in hindsight we will know these things. Of course, we should not write fabricated history and, you know, say something out of the blue or something stupid. But if we just take honest notes and somehow archive them, I think that's a very good practice. I never knew the importance of this until now that I'm seeing some of. I watched, I mean, a couple of these videos of historians who are. I'll give you an example. This Meenakshi Jain, Dr. Meenakshi Jain, who was writing some of these books about, um, kind of the histories, temple histories in India. And in one video, in one podcast, she was actually, so somebody was interviewing her and she was no, I think no, she was just giving a video. It was not a podcast. So she was explaining brief some incidences, examples of temples. So she was mentioning a sun temple like we have in Konark, which is now in ruins, which is just like a pilgrimage. I mean, not even pilgrimage, just like a cultural heritage site, museum kind of. Without the science that is there in the Konark temple, I mean, the kind of calculations you need to have to build something like that, the Vedic architecture, the Vedic mathematics, the Vedic engineering, none of that is really okay. We know, we marvel, oh, Vedic engineering is so nice, but what are the records? Are there any manuscripts which actually record this? And I mean, the meaning of every single thing we should have. How our Vedic science was so rich in all aspects. Yeah? And anyway, so she was mentioning there was the one sun temple in Multan, Pakistan, and it was a glorious temple. And she took out a recorded history of a Chinese traveler, Cn Tsien, first name, and last name is some other Hsien or something like that. No, Tsunghsien, Chung Sien, or I don't know how to pronounce it. So this man, there was a record of his going to Multan in Pakistan, and he took a note. I don't know how that was preserved and whatever. So in that he mentions the glorious sun temple in Multan, where the deity is made of gold and which is inlaid with all kind of jewels. How nice it would be to take darshan. First of all, I am Surya. Of course, we're not demigod worshippers, but he's a we first of all Gayatri mantra we say to sun god, and sun god himself is a Vaishnava. He is a starter of a parampara. Krishna spoke to the sun god. So whatever it is, I mean, similarly the Krishna temples and everyone. So we need to, I mean, if that was there, and of course that was 7th century AD, and then there was another record in 9th century. There's another record in 12th century, 13th century, 16th century of the same temple. It was desecrated many times, and then in the 13th century it was a wooden deity. In the 7th century it was a golden deity. 13th century it was a wooden deity. So that means the deity was replaced by somebody else, So it was the worship was trying to be revived. So that whole story came from these records. When you write, you won't feel that I'm, doing some historical work here. But actually, these things, if you keep those, we can actually have records of how this Hare Krishna movement is actually, progressing in all parts of the world. And I think the chapter in Singapore is also quite, I mean, everywhere. I mean, it's quite a important thing. And to have historical records of these things, I think is important. Although I'm saying this, I'm not actually actively formally recording much. I have here and there some records of whatever happened, but I'm not even organizing them properly. But maybe I should. I mean, I'm saying this to myself to convince myself that I should do it. And I think if some of you can also do it, well and good. I mean, it will be helpful. Don't know in which form, in which way this will be stored or kept in the future, but this will be useful. And that is why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur chose to write these kind of geographical locations and the landmarks and all these things, because that will be important for future. If at all things become lost, these scriptures will, these Anubhasha commentary of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur should help revive those places again. Should there be another, kind of somehow or other it becomes covered. So here also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's early pastimes were recorded in summary form by Murāri Gupta, and those were the basis of Vrindavan Das Thakur and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami to compile this Chaitanya Charitamrita. And today we are benefiting, is it not? प्रभुर जे शेष लीला स्वरूप दामोदर सूत्र करे ग्रंथिलेन ग्रंथेर भीतर. His later pastimes, Madhya Leela and Antya Leela, were recorded in the form of notes by his secretary Svarūpa Dāmodara Goswami and thus kept within a book. So you see, so earlier pastimes are Murāri Gupta and Svarūpa Dāmodara were the later pastimes. So these were the foundation of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now we owe a lot, right? So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami built on what Murāri Gupta and Svarūpa Dāmodara did. And of course, later commentators they explained, and then like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave geographical references to all those places, and then Prabhupada actually took the whole philosophy to the world and brought the world people focus to India. And now I think that should go on in even much bigger scales. And this idea I got about a year back or 1.5 years back, and it just remained as an idea. You know what it is? Minecraft. Minecraft is a game where people, of course, shooting game and all this, whatever. And people build some worlds on Minecraft and like that. But then I learned that there's another aspect to Minecraft where they just use it not for playing games, but actually to build worlds. So I have this idea to build worlds of Dwarka, for example, Mathura, Vrindavan, of and if we have enough information about, say, Srirangam or any other, like even the whole Ramayana, the whole path of Ramayana, Kishkinda, and all this, everything. I mean, whatever history we can find, and whatever like in Krishna book, we have this description of Dwarka, 16,000 palaces, and what kinds of material was used, in ivory and marbles, and magnificence of it. If it can be recreated in a Minecraft world, or there's another technology called Unreal Engine, and the latest version is Unreal Engine 5. And let me tell you, I'm very, very fascinated by these technologies. Unreal Engine 5, you can actually create a movie just like real life. I mean, you can animate things without any real people, but you can animate as if it's like real. And I was thinking, if we can create the whole, Krishna's pastimes or Mahabharata, Ramayana, Vishnu Puran, Srimad Bhagavatam stories in those leelas in video form using Unreal Engine 5, and I think those younger generation that are here on this, who are watching this video, please take it seriously. And if you can learn some of these skills, we should not be just, devotees who are learning scriptures and do nothing about preserving them and actually, propagating these signs and this whole history in innovative formats, which will bring people to our culture. So 1.5 years back or something like that, I got this epiphany where I was so excited I couldn't sleep. I was thinking of, Minecraft, if we can create whole worlds in Minecraft and take people on a virtual pilgrimage of how the city of Dwarka was according to the descriptions of Bhagavatam. Not what ruins of it is left in the ocean now. But, I mean, even that is important. I'm not saying no. But what it was. And tie it with the description, I mean, of course, tie it with the scriptural descriptions and also the historical references and how, like now the Dwarka is under the ocean. And that Dwarka will go under the ocean was the desire of Krishna. And it's recorded in the Bhagavatam. And now it is there. And the other day, our devotees were sharing that verse where, the northwest of India, Bharat, even Kashmir and all that, will be occupied by Mlechas and Yavanas. That is happening now already. So these are already mentioned in history. And if we can present those truths in innovative, attractive formats, I feel there is a lot of market for that, a lot of interest. People would be amazed at what we can produce, what we can, show the world. So somewhere there should be this collaboration between the technology of the West and the culture of the East. And of course, Prabhupada mentioned this, the cooperation between the lame and the blind. The the lame and the blind. I think you know the answer. I mean, you know the analogy, right? So there is a lame man and a blind man. Lame man means he cannot walk, but he can see. But the blind man, he has a good body, but he's blind. So the blind man cannot do much. The lame man also cannot do much. But if they cooperate, they can do a lot. Because the lame man can sit on the shoulders of the strong blind man, and then he can show the path. And then the lame man, the blind man can actually walk that path, and then they can go places. So similarly, our Bharat civilization, it's full of vision. We have the ultimate vision in the world. Nobody can match us. We know how to go back to Krishna. That's what we have, especially in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. That, coupled with the technology of the West and the attractive format in which we can show people our heritage, our knowledge, our everything that we have, that absolutely should be done. And the younger generation, youngsters, I think you should invest some time learning some of the skills. At least. Prabhupada got his devotees to learn painting and draw paintings for his books. And I think now in the 21st century, there are other arts. Picture is, like that. What if we can make, masterpieces? Even in movie format. We should. Yadubar Prabhupada was, one time, during a festival, he was shooting some photographs and everything, and he was putting down his camera and joining the kirtan. Prabhupada said, "Why did you put down the camera? Hold the camera. Your job is to hold the camera." That means he wanted all this recorded and all these things, and inspire other devotees, and not only in that time, but also in the future. Now we have video footages of Prabhupada and, photos of Prabhupada. How inspiring it is, right? So this is important. And he made videos, out of it. So we should have video content. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur time, he made dioramas and exhibitions made of, depicting the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna Leela and all that. And it was a huge success. And he was used to have these big pandals, festivals, tents, where he used to have thousands of people coming, lakhs of people coming and witnessing all of that festival, those dioramas and everything. And then Prabhupada, of course, for his book, he asked the devotees to learn paintings. And I think devotees today should learn the latest technologies available to propagate this in the newest formats available. I don't think we should, waste our time just in social media consuming other people's content, but we should learn seriously how we should make content based on the perfect knowledge we have. Yeah, VR will be the next big thing in technology, and involving Krishna consciousness to that would be really nice. Yeah, if you can have this whole world constructed, Dwaraka, take a tour of Dwaraka, VR tour of Dwaraka, with virtual reality. You can traverse. You can walk through the city of Dwaraka and see all those magnificent palaces and Krishna, how all these pastimes in different places was done and everything. How nice it would be, right? Or Unreal Engine or whatever. These things should be explored. Okay. Devotees. No one could even go to temple and sweep floors in VR. Okay, that's not what I meant. So, like Dimitri said, VR devotees will appear chanting in VR, neglecting real life. That is another huge aspect of it. So don't get lost in it. So we should use it to the extent of, like we can have, for example, this whole class in VR, and all of you will be sitting in front of me, and I'll be talking to all of you, and we'll be in VR. That can be a possibility, a live stream in VR. But apart from that, I think physical association is absolutely necessary. This VR cannot replace that, but it can be used to, propagate our scriptural science through VR. That is something which can be done. We don't want VR devotees. That is, Who is this? ISKM TV. When Unreal Engine 5 came out, my father contacted me and said devotees should create a 3D world based on Bhagavatam where people can use VR headsets to see the devotees live, visit temples, and so on. Well, Um, yeah, 3D world based on Bhagavatam. That's and the heavenly planets, descriptions of the heavenly planets, recreating those. Vaikuntha, description of Vaikuntha planets, description of the Lord. All these things can be done. Movies based on that. These have to be projects. Oh, Nimanita Prabhu. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And I think we should think in these terms. Okay, so going forward, I will guide my son to learn all this tech. Oh, we're gonna have one master of technology and scriptures and everything. Nimanita Prabhu san, I think, is going to be the future beacon for the Hare Krishna movement. By the way, it's going. Can't wait to see what's going to come. So, yeah, I think this enthusiasm should be there for all devotees. We should not sit idly and then do nothing about it. We have to always innovate. In this regard, can little Krishna be considered significant? I feel yes. And also, there has to be a lot of content for children. And I think in ISKCON, I think even Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, I think he did books for children who are not exactly kids. I think 8-year old and above, 7-year old and above, like that. And I think they're very well done. And I think a lot of content for children is very much necessary. And if you can have all these videos depicting the pastimes of the Lord, why not? Children should watch all these things instead of all the stupid stuff that are being shown today. And it's not only for children; it's for adults as well. At the same time, you see, they can also enjoy all these things and be inspired by all these things. Okay, so moving on. এই দুই জনের সূত্র দেখিয়া শুনিয়া বর্ণনা করে না বৈষ্ণব ক্রম যে করিয়া. By seeing and hearing the notes recorded by these two great personalities, a Vaishnava, a devotee of the Lord, can know these pastimes one after another. बाल्यपौगंड कैशोर यौवन बाल्यपौगंड कैशोर यौवन चारि भेद अतएव आदि खंडे लीला चारि भेद. In his original pastimes, there are 4 divisions: Balya, Pauganda, Kaishora, and Yavana, childhood, early boyhood, later boyhood, and youth. Sarva Sadguna Purnam Tam Vande Phalguna Purnimam Yasyam Shri Krishna Chaitanyo Vatirnah Krishna Namabhihi. What is this? Oh, he composed the verse. Okay, in Sanskrit. So, I offer my respectful obeisances under the full moon evening in the month of Phalguna, an auspicious time, full of auspicious symptoms, when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advented himself with the chanting of the holy name Hare Krishna. I think this is a beautiful verse glorifying Gaura Purnima. I never. So this is a obeisances to Gaura Purnima. You see, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the full moon evening in the month of Phalguna, an auspicious time full of auspicious symptoms. So this is a mantra offering respect to Gaura Purnima day. I think this is a beautiful verse. Wow, never knew this existed. फाल्गुन पूर्णिमा संध्याय प्रभुर जन्मोदय से काले दैव योगे चंद्रग्रहण होय. On the full moon evening of the month of Phalguna, when the Lord took birth, coincidentally there was also a lunar eclipse. It was not an accident, not coincidentally something. Coincidental means, of course, it is the Lord's will. हरि हरि बोले लोक हर्षित हया जन्मिला चैतन्य प्रभु नाम जन्माया. In jubilation, everyone was chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hari Hari, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then appeared after first causing the appearance of the holy name. So people were already chanting the name of Hari and then he appeared. Janma balya pauganda kaishora juva kale Harinama lao yaila Prabhuna na chale. At his birth, in his childhood, and in his early and later boyhood, as well as in his youth, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, under different pleas, induced people to chant the holy name of Hari, the Hari Krishna Mahamantra. Chala means cheating, but under different pretexts, for different reasons. That means not exactly for the purpose of convincing them on the importance of the holy name, but under different pleas. So he gives examples. You see, बाल बाल्य भाव छले प्रभु करे न क्रंदन Krishna Hari Nama suni rahoye rodan. In his childhood, when the Lord was crying, he would stop immediately upon hearing the holy names Krishna and Hari. So he did not preach the importance philosophically of the holy name, but he cried. And when people chanted Krishna Hari, and then he would stop. Then they stop chanting, then he cries. So I mentioned this on the Gaur Purnima day, that there was one boy, I think, in the Give Gita group, small boy. He was also doing the same thing. He would cry, and the father chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. He will stop crying. And then when he stops chanting, then again he cries. There was a video like that. Beautiful. I mean, that was what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing. So this was how. So under different chale. This chale means cheating actually, but it's not exactly cheating in this case. Under different pretexts, under different pleas. That's why Prabhupada translated it like that. So if you understand these words, I mean, we can better appreciate what does this mean. I mean, indirectly he is making them chant Hare Krishna. अतएव हरि हरि बोले नारीगण देखिते आइसे जेबा सर्वबंधुजन. All the friendly ladies who came to see the child would chant the holy names Hari Hari as soon as the child would cry. So he made all the ladies chant. गौर हरि बोली तारे हासे सर्व नारी अतएव होइल तार नाम गौर हरि. This is how his name Gaurahari came about. When all the ladies saw this fun, they enjoyed laughing and called the Lord Gaurahari. From then on, Gaurahari became another of his names. He was fair in complexion and he made everybody chant the name Hari. And of course, he is also Hari. And therefore, his name Gaurahari. Balya vayas yavat hatek Balya vayas yavat hate khadi dila Pauganda vayas javat vivaha na koila. His childhood lasted until the date of Hate Khadi, the beginning of his education, and his age from the end of his childhood until he married is called Pauganda. Vivaha korile hoilo navina yauvan sarvatra laoyaila prabhu nama sankirtan. Vivaha korile hoilo navina yauvan sarvatra laoyaila prabhu nama sankirtan. After his marriage, his youth began, and in his youth, he induced everyone to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra anywhere and everywhere. Pauganda vayase paden padana shishya gane sarvatra koren Krishna namer vyakhyane. During his Pauganda age, he became a serious student and also taught disciples. In this way, he used to explain the holy name of Krishna everywhere. सूत्रवृत्ति पांजे टीका कृष्णे ते तात्पर्य शिष्यर प्रतीत होय प्रभाव आश्चर्य. When teaching a course in grammar, Vyakaran, and explaining it with notes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his disciples about the glories of Lord Krishna. All explanations culminated in Krishna, and his disciples would understand them very easily. Thus, his influence was wonderful. Now, here this is very important. So, under different pleas, when he was a baby, he cried and made people chant the name of Hari. Before he was even born, people were chanting because of an eclipse. He made an eclipse come about. Because in eclipse time, people would stop eating and stop everything and chant the name of the Lord. So at least that used to be the Vedic culture. Until now, we are lost everything about it. But that was the culture. During Grahana time, nothing used to happen except glorification of the Lord, and they will go to holy rivers and stay there and then chant the holy name of the Lord. So in this way, they used to spend the Grahana time, which is usually inauspicious. Eclipse is considered inauspicious. but it is made auspicious by chanting the name of the Lord. So therefore, all auspicious things are supposed to be done at that time, especially chanting of the holy name. So before he even came, at the as heralding his birth, the holy name already appeared. So that was a plea. Eclipse was a plea. When he was a baby, his crying was a plea. And then he used to actually, if you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, you will have a lot of naughty activities that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to do when he was a child, in his childhood. For example, there was one incident. I mean, many incidents. I did not read Chaitanya Bhagavat. I want to. I have the book now. I want to read those pastimes. But so one incident I'll tell you. So every morning he would come, and he would meet his school, whether it was elder person or young boy or whatever. If he did not have tilak on his forehead, Vaishnav tilak, he will ridicule that person so badly in public. Oh, you did not take bath? You don't know how to, take bath? You are not taught this in your childhood? You don't know how to offer prayers? You did not put your tika? That means, the tilak, that means nothing is there. You have not done anything. Oh, you are such a filthy person. You did not purify yourself in the morning. You did not take your external snan and internal snan, external and internal bath by worshipping the Lord. Oh, you're dirty man. Hey, everybody, please listen. This man is a very dirty man. Don't, go near him. So in this way, he used to humiliate people. And he used to make religious principles, he used to preach about religious principles in this way, naughty way. So in that way, he used to make people chant. And then later on, he used, you see here, he's teaching course with grammar. And in the name of grammar, he used to teach Krishna consciousness. So this is called chale. So chale means not cheating, but under different pretexts, he brought Krishna. This is important. So now let's read about this purport, this whole grammar thing. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami compiled grammar in two parts, named Laghu Harinamamrita Vyakarana and Brihad Harinamamrita Vyakarana. If someone studies these two texts in Vyakarana or grammar, he learns the grammatical rules of the Sanskrit language and simultaneously learns how to become a great devotee of Lord Krishna. Now, okay, I think I mentioned this on Gaura Purnima Day. I'll repeat this again. So, this was actually based on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and there, very fortunately, there is one devotee called Matsya Das, Matsya Avatar Prabhu in ISKCON, who has translated this Harinamamrita Vyakarana into English with the word to word, shloka, the sutras, the word to word translation, and then the translation and everything. And I think everybody should have that book. I myself have to order it. It's in my wish list. And in this way, we can learn Sanskrit with Krishna consciousness. And he did a course version. That means the original Harinamamrita Vyakarana had, I think, according to him, about 3,800 sutras. And in Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education in ISKCON, this Laghu Harinamamrita Vyakarana, I think it is a summarized, very elementary version of it, is taught. And then the medium version was done by Matsya Prabhu. He did not actually translate the entire 3,800 or 400, whatever number of sutras. He translated about 1,200, which are the most important and which basically can explain everything that we use in our study of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada's books entirely. And that he used, that he translated. So it is a medium version of it. So I think I want to have it, and that's a very good way to not only learn Sanskrit in Krishna conscious way and very faithful to our Gaudiya tradition, but also to teach the next generation Sanskrit. If you want to teach others Sanskrit, I would rather use Jiva Goswami's Harinamamrita Vyakarana than go on Panini's grammar, Panini Ashtadhyayi. Panini is the actual, sage who laid down all these grammatical rules of Sanskrit. And that is what widely everybody refers to. And Jiva Goswami studied all those systems of Sanskrit. Panini's Sanskrit he studied, and many other systems of Sanskrit he studied. And after all of that, he compiled this Harinamamrita Vyakarana, and I happened to online actually I found some extract of that book, first few pages, and in the preface, Matsyavatar Prabhu actually writes there that apparently Jiva Goswami's Harinamamrita Vyakarana is way more clearer than Panini's Ashtadhyayi and way more comprehensive and way more exhaustive. In fact, it is better than Panini's grammar. And unfortunately, the whole of India is not aware of this. And I think we should make it mainstream. We should make it mainstream. And not just this, I mean, our whole Gaudiya Vaishnavism has to become mainstream. Not only in Bharat, but also all over the world. And it also involves this Harinamamrita Vyakarana. I mean, to study our, our scriptures, in a very nice way. And I think we should be, not I think, I mean, Prabhupada also, he, for the Gurukul, he wanted them to learn Sanskrit. And how good it will be if we can teach them from our own Acharya, right? And in a Krishna conscious way. So, that is very important. Then we can understand our own scriptures very nicely. An in-depth understanding we will have. You see, just by the word chale, just now the word chale, because I know the word chala dharma, chalayasi vikramane balimad bhutavamana padanakhani rajanita jana pavana keshavadhrita vamana rupa jaya jagadish hare jaya jagadish hare jaya jagadish hare. So Bali Maharaj cheated, Vamanadev cheated Bali Maharaj and took away all his kingdom from him. So chala yasi, chala. And in the 7th chapter, 15th verse, 15th chapter, 13th verse also, you will find chala dharma. So many times you will see this word chala in the name of cheating. Kaitava, chala. So here chale, that means under pretexts. So the next few verses which mentions, first of all, eclipse before that, and then the crying, and then the, naughty activities, and then Sankirtan, without explaining, just Sankirtan on the streets, and then grammar, teaching his students. So these are all tied to that word chale. So you will find a lot of, depth of understanding if you understand these words. And if you can learn them in Krishna conscious way, according to our acharyas, we should. If we have a way for that, why not? We should revive. We have to revive. Okay, so moving forward in this purport. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Khanda, first chapter, there is a statement about the method by which Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught grammar. Okay, that's interesting. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the aphorisms of grammar to be eternal, like the holy name of Krishna. See, although Panini is given the, this thing, but it's not that before Panini there was no structure in Sanskrit. No. It was not like that. See, every time they revive these things, but actually they have been in existence. Like, for example, Vyasadeva wrote this Bhagavatam 5,000 years ago. Do you mean that the history of, Prahlad Maharaj and all that was not known before? I mean, that happened during Swayambhu Manu's time. How many Manus have passed? It is still intact. I think it's Swayambhu Manu, if I'm not wrong. So anyway, things from that ancient past, histories are preserved. How? Every Kali Yuga, Vyasadeva comes and writes them. How many? In 1 month, Manvantara, there is 71 cycles of the 4 yugas. And this is like 7th Manu and 28th cycle. How many cycles of yugas? And in the Kali Yuga, when people's minds are not so sharp, then book is required. We cannot put in mastak, so pustak is required. So mastak means mind, pustak means book in Hindi. So this is important, right? So that means in every Kali Yuga these were recorded. So, but we think, okay, that time, Vyasadeva wrote. Vyasadeva comes every time to write. And we say that Vyasadeva wrote 5,000 years ago, but it's not just this 5,000 years ago. Every Kali Yuga he comes and writes. So, Mahaprabhu here, Prabhupada is saying that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the aphorisms or the sutras of grammar to be eternal, like the holy name of Krishna. And therefore, he explained the whole grammar in the... And that is, you see, as Prabhupada explains here, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaischa sarvai rahameva vedya. The purport of all revealed scriptures is understanding of Krishna. Even the purpose of grammar is to understand Krishna only. unlike what Shankaracharya did, he used the grammar to lead people away from Krishna. That is deadly grammar. But this is actual grammar which is meant to see these upangas, Vedangas. Grammar is actually Vyakarana is Vedanga, means one of the six Shadvegan Vedangas, or six corollary parts of the Vedas, which are grammar, astrology. There are six things: Chanda, the metrical information, and all these things. So these things are also necessary because everything is using these frameworks. The construction of verses in our scriptures are using these frameworks of grammar and chanda and all these things, right? Otherwise, things are not clear. So, to clearly explain the passions of the Lord, you have to have some standard language, standard grammar. Then people can understand what you're talking about. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the aphorisms of grammar to be eternal, like the holy name of Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vedesya sarvairahameva vedyah. The purport of all revealed scriptures is understanding of Krishna. Therefore, if a person explains anything that is not Krishna, he simply wastes his time laboring hard without fulfilling the aim of his life. If one simply becomes a teacher or professor of education but does not understand Krishna, it is to be understood that he is among the lowest of mankind. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:15, Naradhama Mayaya Pahrita Jnanaha. If one does not know the essence of all revealed scriptures but still becomes a teacher, his teaching is like the disturbing braying of an ass. Oh, that's a strong word, right? That's what it is. That's a fact. जारे देखे तारे कहे कहो कृष्ण नामे भासाइल नवद्वीप ग्राम. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a student, he asked whomever he met to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In this way, he inundated the whole town of Navadvip with the chanting of Hare Krishna. Purport: the present Navadvip Dham is but a part of the whole of Navadvip. Navadvip means 9 islands. These 9 islands, which occupy an area of land estimated at 32 square miles, are surrounded by the different branches of the Ganges. In all 9 of those islands of the Navadvip area, there are different places for cultivating devotional service. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23 that there are Navavidha Bhakti, 9 different activities of devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoh Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedanam. There are different islands in the Navadvip area for cultivation of these 9 varieties of devotional service. They are as follows: Antardvip, Simantadvip, Godrumadvip, Madhyadvip, Koladvip, Rutudvip, Jahnudvip, Modadrumadvip, and Rudradvip. According to the settlement map, our ISKCON Navadvip center is situated on the Rudradvip island. Below Rudradvip in Antardvip is Mayapur. There, Sri Jagannath Mishra, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, used to reside. In all these different islands, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a young man, used to lead his Sankirtan party. He thus inundated the entire area with the waves of love of Krishna. Kishore Vayase Arambhela Sankirtan Ratra Dine Premen Nritya Sangye Bhaktagan. Just prior to his youthful life, he began the Sankirtan movement. Day and night, he used to dance in ecstasy with his devotees. Nagare Nagare Bhrame Kirtana Kariya Bhasaila Tribhuvana Prema Bhakti Diya. The Sankirtan movement went on from one part of the town to another as the Lord wandered everywhere performing kirtan. In this way, he inundated the whole world by distributing love of Godhead. See, purport. One may raise the question how all 3 worlds became inundated with love of Krishna since Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed kirtan only in the Navadvip area. The answer is that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. The entire cosmic manifestation results from the Lord's first setting it in motion. Similarly, since the Sankirtan movement was first set in motion 500 years ago by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire that it spread all over the universe, the Krishna consciousness movement, in continuity of that same motion, is now spreading all over the world, and in this way it will gradually spread all over the universe. With the spread of the Krishna consciousness movement, everyone will merge in an ocean of love of Krishna. So there is no exaggeration in saying what this statement has said. And Prabhupada gives us the explanation. And this was my hunch, and Prabhupada actually said it in the purport. See, so he set it in motion, and then now it's still going on with that inertia, you know, and it has to go on more. All of the universe, Prabhupada is saying here. 26 वत्सर ऐच्छे नवद्वीप ग्रामे लावयाला सर्वलोके कृष्ण प्रेम नामे. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in the Navadvip area for 24 years, and he induced every person to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and thus merge in love of Krishna. 26 वत्सर छिला कोरिया संन्यास भक्त गण लया कैला नीलाचले वास. For his remaining 24 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after accepting the renounced order of life, stayed at Jagannath Puri with his devotees. तार मध्य नीलाचले 6 वत्सर नृत्य गीत प्रेम भक्ति दान निरंतर. For 6 of these 24 years in Neelachal, Jagannath Puri, he distributed love of Godhead by always chanting and dancing. सेतुबंध आर गौड़ व्यापी वृंदावन प्रेम नाम प्रचार्या कोरिला भ्रमण. Beginning from Cape Comorin, which is Kanyakumari, and extending through Bengal to Vrindavan, during these 6 years he toured all of India chanting, dancing and distributing love of Krishna. एई मध्य लीला नाम लीला मुख्य धाम शेष अष्टादश वर्ष अंत्य लीला नाम. The activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his travels after he accepted sannyas are his principal pastimes. His activities during his remaining 18 years are called the Antya Leela, or the final portion of his pastimes. तार मध्य 6 वत्सर भक्त गण संगे प्रेम भक्ति लावयाला नृत्य गीत रंगे. For 6 of these 18 years, he continuously stayed in Jagannath Puri. He regularly performed kirtan, inducing all the devotees to love Krishna simply by chanting and dancing. 12 वत्सर शेष रहिला नीलाचले 12 वत्सर शेष रहिला नीलाचले प्रेमावस्था शिखाइला आस्वादन छले. Again, chale, under the plea of tasting it himself. For the remaining 12 years, he stayed in Jagannath Puri. He taught everyone how to taste the transcendental mellow ecstasy of love of Krishna by tasting it himself. So that's why there is an internal reason and an external reason. Under the pretext, or it's actually not a pretext. When it's a pretext, means it's not the real reason, but another reason. But in the case of the Lord's pastimes, when the word chale is used, or the pretext or plea is used, it is as if to suggest, it seems as if to suggest that the Lord did one thing actually to do another thing. But even that one thing is as important as the other thing. For example, Krishna's internal reasons were to taste the love of Krishna, and the external reason was to spread the Sankirtan so that he could deliver the whole world. Now, under the plea of tasting the Radharani's love, he came to distribute the, Krishna's holy names all over the world. So, you can say that, and in the pretext of, tasting it himself, he preached to the whole world. But actually, that pretext also is as real as the real mission. So, he has two missions, internal and external. Internally, he wanted to taste, and external reason is to spread the Sankirtan movement, right? So both are important. Both are equally important. So in the Lord's pretext is not something of lesser importance than the actual thing. This is the absolute nature of the Lord, where the pretext and the actual mission is of equal importance. It is absolute. There is nothing, no duality. Purport. A person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness always feels separation from Krishna, because such a feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his last 12 years of existence within this world at Jagannath Puri, taught the people of the world how, with the feeling of separation, one can develop his dormant love of Krishna. Such feelings of separation or meeting with Krishna are different stages of love of Godhead. These feelings develop in time when a person seriously engages in devotional service. The highest stage is called Prema Bhakti, but this stage is attained by executing Sadhana Bhakti. One should not try to elevate himself artificially to the stage of Prema Bhakti without seriously following the regulative principles of Sadhana Bhakti. Prema Bhakti is the stage of relishing, whereas Sadhana Bhakti is the stage of improving in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught this cult of devotional service in full detail by practical application in his own life. It is said, therefore, apani achari bhakti shikhaimu sabare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and in the role of a Krishna Bhakta, devotee of Krishna, he instructed the entire world how one can execute devotional service and thus go back home, back to Godhead in due course of time. So this is important. Very nice. I think it's self-explanatory. Everything is nicely explained. रात्रि दिवसे कृष्ण विरह स्फुरन उन्मादेर चेष्टा करे प्रलाप वचन. Day and night, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna. Manifesting symptoms of this separation, he cried and talked very inconsistently like a madman. Shri Radhar pralap jaiche uddhava darshane sheimat unmad pralap kore ratri dine. Sheimat unmad pralap kore ratri dine. As Srimati Radharani talked inconsistently when she met Uddhava, so also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished both day and night such ecstatic talk in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So, of course, if you know Bhagavatam, then you know that Brahmara Gita, Uddhava, when he came, then she talked like a mad woman to a bumblebee. And there's a huge commentary by the Acharyas on this and how deep the meaning of Brahmara Gita is and the transcendental madness with which Radharani speaks. So, that is being referred to here in this verse. Purport. In this connection, one should refer to Srimati Radharani's soliloquy. Interesting word. Soliloquy. Let me actually take out the meaning, and I want to be sure of how I pronounce it as well. Dramatic device where a character speaks to his or herself. A soliloquy is a monologue addressed to oneself, thoughts spoken out loud without addressing another. Soliloquies are used as a device in drama to let a character make their thoughts known to the audience, address it directly, or take it into their confidence, wholly or in part. Okay, that's very nice. Define soliloquy. I just want to be sure of the pronunciation. Let me put near the mic here.
Soliloquy.
Soliloquy. Okay, soliloquy. Soliloquy. English pronunciation is not at all perfect, so you need to actually learn the pronunciation. Soliloquy. Okay. So in this connection, one should refer to Srimati Radharani's soliloquy after meeting Uddhava in Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented a similar picture of such ecstatic imaginary talking. Full of jealousy and madness, symptomizing neglect by Krishna, Srimati Radharani, criticizing a bumblebee, talked just like a mad woman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the last days of his pastimes, exhibited all the symptoms of such ecstasy. In this connection, one should refer to fourth chapter of the Ādi Leela verses 107 and 108. I don't know what they are, but I remember reading the Antya-Leela. Absolute madness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was so wow. It was very, very nice. It's a pity that many devotees won't even reach Chaitanya Charitamrita. I mean, won't even reach Bhagavatam, let alone Chaitanya Charitamrita. So if you read, then there's so much nectar there. Fourth chapter, 107. Let's see what this is. Sheshalilaya Prabhur Krishna Viraha Unmada Brahmamaya Cheshta Ar Pralapam Mayavad. This is not Mayavad, okay? Pralapamoy. Pralapamoy. Delirious. Vad means talk. शेषलीलाय प्रभुर कृष्ण विरह उन्माद भ्रममय चेष्टा आर pralapmoy vad. In the final portion of his pastimes, Lord Chaitanya was obsessed with the madness of separation from Lord Krishna. He acted in erroneous ways and talked deliriously. And then 108, you can read the purport. I'll leave that as a homework. राधिकार भाव जय छे उद्धव दर्शने शै भावे मत्त प्रभु रोहे रात्रि दिने. Just as Radhika went mad at the sight of Uddhava, so Lord Chaitanya was obsessed day and night with the madness of separation. Why Srimati Radharani went mad at the sight of Uddhava? She had no feeling for Uddhava. She had feeling for Krishna, but Uddhava resembled so closely to Krishna's features that she immediately remembered Krishna, but she never mistook Uddhava to be Krishna. And of course, it is not understood whether she was speaking to the bumblebee or to the Uddhava, but it was a soliloquy. So she was basically talking to herself. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives very elaborate meanings and shastric references and giving them technical names. Actually, Rupa Goswami does that, and Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes that. Like we know this word of what is this called? Why it is not coming to my mind? Nectar of Instruction, verse 2. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpa. Prajalpa, it means gossip, right? Let me actually take you there. How deep that is actually, that whole Brahmara Gita. It's called Chitra Jalpa. Or the wonderful talking of Radharani. You see, 2360. Madhya 20. Chitrajalper dasha anga prajalpadinam Brahmaragitar dasha shloka tahate praman. Mad emotional talks include 10 divisions called Prajalpa and other names. An example of this is the 10 verses spoken by Srimati Radharani called The Song to the Bumblebee. Imaginative mad talks known as Chitrajalpa can be divided into 10 categories: Prajalpa, Parijalpa, Vijalpa, Ujjalpa, Sanjalpa, Avajalpa, Abhijalpa, Ajalpa, Pratijalpa, and Sujalpa. There are no English equivalents for these different features of Jalpa, imaginative talk. And the definitions of each of these are given by, I think, Rupa Goswami, which were quoted by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or what, in the purports of these verses, and I think in the 10th canto, I think 47th chapter or something, Uddhava, the song of the bumblebee, Brahmara Gita. So in that, there is elaborate purports of each of these and a verse to define each of these Jalpa. Chitra Jalpa. Chitra means, Chitra means actually picture. So, mad talks. Okay. Chitra Jalpa, mad talking. So, Prajalpa, we only know Prajalpa, But these definitions are given. And if we go 10, 47, 21, okay, you see. Apibata madhupuryam aryaputrodhanaste स्मरति स पितृगेहान् सौम्य बन्धूंश्च गोपान् क्वचिदपि स कथानः किङ्करीणां गृणीते भुजमगुरु सुगन्धं मूर्ध्न्यधास्यत्कदानु. So 10th canto 47th chapter verses 12 through 21. 10 verses 12 to 21 of this chapter are the 10 different types of Jalpa, Chitra Jalpa. So of course Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a whole commentary on this. I don't have time to go through all that. Sujalpa, this is the last one, you see. So Ujjwala Nilamani, Rupa Goswami, actually explains and defines each of these jalpas. Although in English there is no equivalent, there is definitions of this, and Rupa Goswami defines all of this. And this verse is the actually let's read the translation of this verse before we go here. O Uddhava, it is indeed regrettable that Krishna resides in Mathura. Does he remember his father's household affairs and his friends, the cowherd boys? O great soul, does he ever talk about us, his maidservants? When will he lay on our heads his aguru scented hand? So, this is a Sujalpa. What is Sujalpa? Yatrarjavat sa gambhiryam सदैन्यं सह चापलं सोत्कण्ठं च हरिः पृष्ठः ससुजल्पो निगद्यते. When out of honest sincerity a lover questions Sri Hari with gravity, humility, unsteadiness and eagerness, such speech is known as Sujalpa. And you can read, I mean, in the previous verse, this is also from, I won't read this thing, I'll just read this Pratijalpa. दुस्त्यजद्वन्द्वभावेऽस्मिन् प्राप्तिर्नार्हेत्यनुद्धतं दूतसम्माननेनोक्तं यत्र स प्रतिजल्पकः. When the lover humbly states that although she is unworthy of attaining her beloved, she cannot give up hoping for a conjugal relationship with him, such words spoken with respect for her beloved's message are called pratijalpa. See how much deep meaning of that. So each of these verses actually signifies this, and you can go and do your homework. But I'm just going through these definitions. This is Ajalpa. Jaihmyam tasyarti dattvam cha nirvedad yatra kirtitam bhangyanya sukhan dattvam cha sa ajalpa udiritaha. A statement spoken in disgust, describing how the male lover is deceitful and brings one misery, and also implying that he gives happiness to others, is known as Ajalpa. So criticism is there in this. And this verse, Bhangya tyagauchiti tasya khaganaamapi khedanat yatra sanushayam prokta tadbhaved abhijalpitam abhijalpa. When a lover indirectly states with remorse that her beloved is fit to be given up, such speech, uttered like the plaintive crying of a bird, is called abhijalpa. I think especially Chakravaka can be attributed to this. Then, हरौ काठिन्य कामित्व धौर्त्याद आसक्त्ययोग अयोग्यता यत्र शेर्ष्याभियेवोक्ता सोवजल्पः सतां मतः. Saintly persons have concluded that when a lover, impelled by jealousy and fear, declares that Lord Hari is unworthy of her attachment because of his harshness, lustiness, and dishonesty, such speech is called avajalpa. Wow. Hari is unworthy of her attachment. That means he does not deserve my attachment, Radharani is thinking. So there's a pride involved in this. There's of course, all transcendental, but we will find reflections of these even in the material world. In dealings, loving affairs of man and woman, or even other circumstances. But it's interesting how these things exist in the spiritual world and how they are, how Srimati Radharani, is actually speaking in this way. Okay, next. Solunthaya gahanaya kayapyakshepam mudraya tasya कृतज्ञताद्युक्तिः संकल्पः कथितो बुधैः. The learned describes Sanjalpa. Okay, Sanjalpa. Oh, Sankalpa. I said Sankalpa. Sanjalpa Kathito Budhai. So, Sanjalpa. The learned describes Sanjalpa as that speech which decries with deep irony and insulting gestures the beloved's ungratefulness and so on. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the word Adi and so on, Adi in quote, and so on, implies a perception in one's lover of hard-heartedness, of an inimical attitude, and of a complete lack of love. हरेः कुहकताख्यानं गर्वगर्भितयेर्षया गर्भितयेर्ष्यया सासूयश्च तदाक्षेपो धीरैरुज्जल्पईर्यते उज्जल्प. The declaration of Lord Hari's duplicitous nature in a mood of spite born of pride, together with jealousy, spoken insults directed against him, has been termed Ujjalpa by the wise. So, and then व्यक्तयासूयया गूढ मान मुद्रान्तरालया अघद्विषिकाटक्षोत्तिर विजल्पो विदुषां मतः. According to learned authorities, Vijalpa is sarcastic speech that is addressed to the killer of Agha and that openly expresses jealousy while at the same time hinting at one's angry pride. प्रभोर्निदयता शाठ्य चापल्याद्युपपादनात् स्वविचक्षणता व्यक्तिर्भङ्ग्या स्यात् परिजल्पितम्. Parijalpa is that speech which through various devices shows one's own cleverness by exposing the mercilessness, duplicity and unreliability and so on of one's lord. That is what? Parijalpa. Okay. This is the first one. Asuryeşya madayuja yovadhiranamudraya priyasya kaushalo garah prajalpah satu kirtyate. Prajalpa is speech that denigrates the tactlessness of one's lover with expressions of disrespect. It is spoken in a mood of envy, jealousy and pride. So, Prajalpa, we have to give up, right? That is one of the 6 aspects that we have to give up in the course of surrendering to Krishna. So, Prajalpa, it is denigrating others with expressions of disrespect in the mood of envy, jealousy, and pride. And even with attachment or whatever it is, when all these Chitra Jalpa, when it is directed toward material people or material things, then it's actually madness. But the same things when directed towards Krishna, that is transcendental madness. So the same things, whatever is, all these definitions, if they're directed towards material attachments, so that is a cause of our fall down. But this Brahmara Gita is a principle in Yukta Vairagya where the same things, even though they may be actually madness in the material world, but when they are, used for Krishna, it becomes the highest, because it also signifies viraha, vipralambha, which is separation from Krishna, which is the highest ecstasy taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, going out all the way, what is the time? 9:50. I'll go until maybe 10:20 like that and stop. विद्यापति जयदेव चंडीदासर गीत आस्वादेन रामानंद स्वरूप सहित. The Lord used to read the books of Vidyapati, Jayadev and Chandidas, relishing their songs with his confidential associates like Sri Ramananda Rai and Svarūpa Dāmodara Goswami. Purport. Vidyapati was a famous composer of songs about the pastimes of Radha Krishna. He was an inhabitant of Mithila, born in a Brahmana family. It is calculated that he composed his songs during the reign of kings Shivasimha and Queen Lakshma Devi. So, you see, I have no idea of who King Shivasimha is. I would like to know. And who the Vidyapati, the whole history of Vidyapati will be nice. to learn all this. Never taught. So this is why I'm a little bit fascinated to read all this kind of history and you know revive it. That's why his songs are in Maithili language. I think Tatala Saikate Bari Bindu Sama Sutamita Ramani Samaje. So beautiful song that is. And it is one of Prabhupada's favorite songs. And that is written by Vidyapati. And I only know one song about from Vidyapati. I don't know the rest of the songs. It will be good to have a collection of Vidyapati's songs. Maybe there is somewhere. If there is, I would like to have also. So why they should be forgotten? Why should they be forgotten? So all those songs we can sing as Vaishnava songs in ours. Maybe KK songs have more than one song. I don't know. But looks like he's a famous composer of songs about the pastimes of Radha Krishna. Maybe some are more comprehensive than others. So of course, in which case I would not want to enter that realm. But at least those instructive songs that we can learn something from at this stage of our devotional service, we should definitely have access to that. Hmm. So it is calculated that he composed his songs during the reign of King Shivasimha and Queen Lachima Devi in the beginning of the 14th century of the Shaka era, almost 100 years before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The 12th generation of Vidyapati's descendants is still living. Vidyapati's songs about the pastimes of Lord Krishna express intense feelings of separation from Krishna, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished all those songs in his ecstasy of separation from Krishna. I mean, just imagine how great is Vidyapati that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is relishing his songs. That means it is worth knowing about Vidyapati. I don't think his history should be just, unknown, isn't it? So I would actually like to know the history of Vidyapati and also his songs, a collection of his songs. Jayadev Goswami. Actually, I do not know the full story of Jayadev Goswami. I think there is enough records of Jayadev Goswami. Maybe I should just read up. Hmm. Jayadev was born during the reign of Maharaj Lakshmana Sena of Bengal. Again, I don't know who Lakshmana Sena is. So when I read these names, it's just like, okay, some isolated Lakshmana Sena. But if I know something like Prataprudra, King Prataprudra and his father, what is his name? Very powerful kingdom, and governor of Madras, this Ramanand Rai. And I did not know why governor of Madras, he's in Chennai. Why is he coming all the way to Orissa? But no, at that time, the Madras kingdom was all the way until the border, until inside Orissa. So, unless we have an idea of what is going on at that time, we can't appreciate like why Ramanand Rai and Prataprudra are so close with each other. So, with some geographical and historical knowledge, then we can understand what actually it means. Because I was also thinking Ramanand Rai is in Madras. Because today in India, Madras means Chennai. But it was not so. The kingdom was until there. So the political boundaries, we don't know at that time what they were. Now, certainly they are different. So even until British time, the Madras presidency was all the way until Andhra Pradesh and even further to the borders of Orissa. So that was the case. And mind you, I'm not just interested in the history in a mundane way. Our Bharat is the center of the world, actually. It is not any. In fact, in China, they call themselves Chongguo. Chongguo. Chongguo means the center of the world. In fact, the way they write it is they'll write a rectangle and then middle line. There's a line from the middle, through the middle of that box. That is the meaning of their understanding of China. They don't call themselves Chinese. Chongguo. Chongguo Ran. So Chinese people. So Ran means people, of course. So I know a little bit of Chinese here and there. But anyway, so they call themselves the middle country, middle of the world. They think they're the center of the world. Actually, India was the center of the world. Bharat is the center of the world because all culture, all religion, all wealth, all everything that exists comes actually from the Bharat. The Lord chooses the Bharat to come down when He comes to this earth planet. I mean, what else do you need? It is actually the center of the world. So therefore, the rich Vaishnava culture, the rich sampradaya, the rich customs, and the whole kingdoms, and all that heritage and history should be preserved, not simply forgotten. Uh, of all these, especially these great saintly people, sadhus like Tukaram, I actually may have the story of Tukaram book. I need to study. I think I have. Not sure. I think I have. So I want to read all these sadhus. I mean, the Vaishnavas, big acharyas. I mean, their life story. Even Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya. I have the book. I have read it once. Read them once. Kind of forgot many details of the stories. I mean, their lives. But it's important to, I mean, have all that available, especially when in this today's age, when there's technology, when there's capability to do it. Immediately, it has to be done without any, what do you say, delay. So anyway, coming back here, his father was Bhojadeva and his mother was Vama Devi. For many years, he lived in Navadvip, who is Jayadeva Goswami. See, Jayadeva Goswami also lived in Navadvip. So how great center of learning Navadvip was. Now it is unknown. What is Navadvip? Hmm. For many years, he lived in Navadvip, then the capital of Bengal, not Kolkata. Navadvip was the capital of Bengal. His birthplace was in the Birbhum district in the village Kendubilva. In the opinion of some authorities, however, he was born in Orissa and still others say that he was born in southern India. He passed the last days of his life in Jagannath Puri. One of his famous books is Geet Govinda, which is full of transcendental mellow feelings of separation from Krishna. The gopis felt separation from Krishna before the Rasa dance, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Geet Govinda expresses such feelings. There are many commentaries on the Geet Govinda by many Vaishnavas. So, at least a brief, understanding of each of these is given in the purport here. You see, Chandidas was born in the village of Nannur, which is also in the Birbhum district of Bengal. He was born of a Brahmana family, and it is said that he also took birth in the beginning of the 14th century Shakabda era. It has been suggested that Chandidas and Vidyapati were great friends because the writings of both express the transcendental feelings of separation profusely. The feelings of ecstasy described by Chandidas and Vidyapati were actually exhibited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He relished all those feelings in the role of Srimati Radharani, and his appropriate associates for this purpose were Sri Ramananda Rai and Sri Svarūpa Dāmodara Goswami. These intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu helped the Lord very much in the pastimes in which he felt like Radharani. Now, it is not just a coincidence that 100 years before the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was Chandidas and Vidyapati suddenly coincidentally appeared and wrote separation songs about Krishna. No, it must have been Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's plan to send them. He must have sent them here to write all these things. So later, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, he can release those. Madhavendra Puri also, Ishwar Puri, they're sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, Ayappa is asking, Jayadeva Goswami is Nimbarka Sampradaya Prabhu? I don't even know, which I'm embarrassed to say, which I have to know, because I mean, he has such a crucial role in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. But I do not know. I need to know. I need to read a whole biography of Jayadeva Goswami himself. I don't know the full story of Jayadeva Goswami, although I know he wrote. Apparently, he wrote more than Geet Govinda, other books also. So it will be good to have such records. Maybe there are, I'm just not aware. Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in this connection that such feelings of separation as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enjoyed from the books of Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Jayadeva Goswami are especially reserved for persons like Sri Ramananda Rai, Svarūpa Dāmodara, who were Paramahamsas, men of the topmost perfection because of their advanced spiritual consciousness. Such topics are not to be discussed by ordinary persons imitating the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur draws the line. I mean, we can't just enter into these books without having achieved that high stage of devotion. So we can't have a claim to such a position. So we can't really study these books at this stage. Such topics are not to be discussed by ordinary persons imitating the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For critical students of mundane poetry and literary men without God consciousness who are after bodily sense gratification, there is no need to reach such a high standard of transcendental literature because they will misunderstand. Persons who are after sense gratification should not try to imitate Raganuga devotional service. The songs of Chandidas, Vidyapati, and Jayadev describe the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mundane reviewers of these songs simply help people in general become debauchees, and this leads only to social scandals and atheism in the world. See, this is the big problem with approaching these books without the qualification. They'll lead to destruction. One should not misunderstand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna to be the activities of a mundane young boy and girl. The mundane sexual activities of young boys and girls are most abominable. Therefore, those who are in bodily consciousness and who desire sense gratification are forbidden to indulge in discussions of the transcendental pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. So 10 o'clock. Okay, another 10-15 minutes. कृष्णेरवियोगे जत प्रेम चेष्टित आस्वादीय पूर्ण कोयलो आपन वांछित. In separation from Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished all these ecstatic activities and thus he fulfilled his own desires. Purport: in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to taste the feelings Radharani felt upon seeing Krishna. Krishna himself could not understand the ecstatic feelings of Radharani toward him, and therefore he desired to accept the role of Radharani and thereby taste these feelings. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna with the feelings of Radharani. In other words, he is a combination of Radha and Krishna. It is therefore said, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. By worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu alone, one can relish the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna together. One should therefore try to understand Radha Krishna not directly but through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and through his devotees. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Rupa Raghunath Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bujhobo Se Jugal Priti. When shall I develop a mentality of service towards Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and the other devotees of Lord Chaitanya, and thus become eligible to understand the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna? I think it's quite self-explanatory. We would approach Radha Krishna through the devotees, especially through our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. अनंत चैतन्य लीला क्षुद्र जीव हया के वर्णिते पारे ताहा विस्तार करिया. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are unlimited. How much can a small living entity elaborate about those transcendental pastimes? सूत्र करि गणे जदि आपने अनंत सहस्र बदने तेहो नाहि पाय anta. If Sheshanag Ananta personally were to make the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya into sutras, even with his thousands of mouths, there is no possibility that he could find their limit. दामोदर स्वरूपार गुप्त मुरारी मुख्य मुख्य लीला सूत्रे लिखिया छे विचारी. Devotees like Sri Svarūpa Dāmodara and Murāri Gupta have recorded all the principal pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in the form of notes after deliberate consideration. Shey anusare likhi leela sutra gana vistari varniya chena taha das vrindavana. Vistari varniya chen taha das vrindavana. Shey anusare likhi leela sutra gan vistare varniya chen taha das vrindavan. The notes kept by Sri Svarūpa Dāmodara and Murāri Gupta are the basis of this book. See? Following those notes, I write of all the pastimes of the Lord. The notes have been described elaborately by Vrindavan Das Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Leelar Vyas Das Vrindavan Madhura Koriya Leela Korila Rachan. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, the authorized writer of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is as good as Srila Vyasadeva. He has described the pastimes in such a way as to make them sweeter and sweeter. ग्रंथ विस्तार भये छाड़िला जे जे स्थान शेषे स्थाने किच्छु करिबो व्याख्यान. Being afraid of his books becoming too voluminous, he left some places without vivid descriptions. I shall try to fill those places as far as possible. प्रभुर लीलामृत ते हो कोइलो आस्वादन তার ভুক্ত শেষ কিছু করিয়ে চরবন, ভুক্ত শেষ কিছু করিয়ে চরবন. The transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya have actually been relished by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. I am simply trying to chew the remnants of food left by him. This is the food. You know, this kind of reference is made to Shukadeva Goswami also. Do you know? I think you should know. 113. निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. Here, शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलम्. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectar and juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So you see how the remnants of that Shukadeva Goswami are even more tasteful because it has come out from the Shukadeva Goswamis. What does that mean? So, what do you mean by remnants? Why it is called as remnants? Because when you usually, suppose for example, sugarcane. Let's take sugarcane for example. And when sugarcane, if you chew the sugarcane and you taste all the sweetness, the rest of it is remnants, and it doesn't have any sweet taste. That is materially, but spiritually, it becomes even more tasteful. And apparently, I don't know about this biologically. Here, I think Prabhupada mentions that when a fruit is tasted by a parrot, the remnant is even more tasteful. The remnant of the fruit, if the parrot tastes it partially, the rest of the fruit is even more tasteful. But I don't know how much if it is. I don't know firsthand or physically about this. Looks like it is, and that is the exact reason why it is Shukamukhar from the lips of. So it is apparently that Prabhupada mentions also that if a fruit is tasted by parrot, it becomes more sweeter. So if that is possible even for a material thing, practically I don't know about this. But if that is practical, possible even for a material thing, what about the scriptural knowledge? So unlike the sugar cane, when the remnants are not tasteful, when Sukadeva Goswami describes these pastimes with his own realization and with the depth of meaning, and when later on Vaishnava commentators explain them, that's another example. Okay, I want to say something about this. So, why do Vaishnava commentators give explanation? Of course, one reason is to clarify things for the people, but also to share their realizations. It is not that they're adding. They're seeing that there's something deficient and therefore they are trying to explain something. But no, it is not like that. So it is this Charvana, Bhukta Shesha. So Sukadeva Goswami explained his realizations and his understandings, and he shared different Vaishnavas conversations like Vidura Maitreya, Uddhava Radharani, and there is Narada with many devotees. So how Narada Muni is explaining the inner meaning of certain things, and when we actually read Vaishnava commentary, we can understand the significance. And when they share the realizations, when we understand with the like for example, Brahmar Gita, Srimati Radharani spoke 10 verses. Now Vishwanath Rupa Goswami has defined he has given names of those different Chitra Jalpa, and he defined each of them in Ujjwal Nilamani, and that is quoted in the purport. So with that you can have a greater understanding of or deeper understanding thanks to the realizations shared by Acharyas. So the same pastime, but it is relishable even more when you hear it from a Vaishnava, because he's sharing with his own realizations coupled with it, and it becomes even more sweeter and sweeter. It's not adding any detail or adding something concoction, but it's just enabling us to taste, making it tastier and tastier for others down the line. So this is an example of that. You see, Chaitanya Charitamrita is written on based on the notes of Murāri Gupta and Svarūpa Dāmodara. They noted down as notes, and then this was written in poetry form based on that. And now, with Prabhupada's translation and purport and everything, we are getting to relish these great scriptures. And then when there is commentary by the acharyas, all this adds to the relish. And when we relish like this, it's not actually sense enjoyment. It is just we'll get more attached to Krishna. Understanding all these realizations of Vaishnavas, we'll get more attached to Krishna, attached to devotees, attached to the acharyas, attached to our own lineage. Because we have to stay true to our spiritual master Srila Prabhupada and our entire parampara, right? So we can understand with each explanation, we can understand the greatness of these acharyas and how they relish and how they're sharing and how we are benefiting from such sharing of knowledge. Even though we may not be as qualified, but at least the little bit also it is very fascinating, right? And that attracts our minds, our hearts to this science. So that is the meaning of Tatparaha Samyatendriya in 4.39 of Bhagavad Gita. That one has to be very attached to the Vedic literature and see, not only relish through the realizations of the acharyas, but then apply that knowledge in his own life, because then he has to see through the Shastra Chakshu. So then he has to, when he is facing either challenges or, pleasurable circumstances or whatever, he can always draw inspiration from all those pastimes, those teachings, those explanations of the acharyas. And that is how we live as Vaishnavas. The songs and everything. Somebody is asking me, can't I see the questions of Facebook Live? I can if they come. When there are comments there, I can see, but I don't see anything. I see some comments by Mataji and some Madhavi Chatterjee and a few others. So I don't see much there, much activity going on there. Few people have commented. I can see their comments. Okay. So coming back here, Prabhur Lilamrita Teho Koelo Aswadan Tar Bhukta Sesha Kichu Korea Charvan. So each time, this is called Dasa Dasana Das. I mean the parampara system. The knowledge is handed down, through the parampara, and each of them are able to relish even more and more and more. See, that is the beauty of parampara system. Each time, you get more and more and more. In English, there is this phrase which is called standing on the shoulders of giants. That means I can't see very far, but if I stand on the shoulders of giants, I can. So, with our insight, we cannot see very much. I mean, we cannot understand the scriptures very much. But standing on the shoulders of these giants, of these acharyas, we can appreciate much farther. So that is quite necessary for our advancement, right? So, what would we do? What would we do without Prabhupada's purpose? I mean, first of all, we wouldn't even be introduced to this movement, and even if we ever get a chance upon these books, we will never understand. Tar bhukta sesha kichu koriye charvan. So, very nice analogy. I'm simply trying to chew the remnants of food left by him. Bhaktapada, what is that? Bhaktapad Renu Aru Bhaktapada Jal Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha Tina Mahabal. Okay. You know this verse, right? Antya 16.60, I think. Bhaktapada Dhuli, Bhaktapada Renu, okay. Bhaktapada Dhuli Aru Bhaktapada Jal Bhakta Bhukta Avashesha Tina Mahabal. The dust of the feet of a devotee, the water that has washed the feet of a devotee, and the remnants of food left by a devotee are three very powerful substances. What about the talks that are coming from the mouth of a devotee? What about the books that are written by a devotee? This bhakta bhukta avashesha thing, this bhukta avashesha, this food left by devotee, can be also interpreted in this way, that the pastimes of Lord Krishna which he enjoyed, he relished, that remnants, the explanations of that pure acharya, ah, is is to be relished by the devotees. So this has two meanings. Of course, the food remnants itself, but also, I mean, looking at the comparison that um, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami just made, that he is eating the remnants of food, I mean, chewed by Vrindavan Das Thakur, it can be applied to the topics of Krishna as well, right? And I think that other verse is also comparing it with food. Chaitanya Charitamrita. যে লীলা অমৃত বিনে খায় যদি অন্ন পানে তবে ভক্তের দুর্বল জীবন যার এক বিন্দু পানে উৎফুল্লিত তনু মনে হাসে গায় করয়ে নর্তন. Men become stout and strong by eating sufficient grains, but the devotee who simply eats ordinary grains but does not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna gradually becomes weak and falls down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks but a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. You see, eating. This is also, food and pastimes. This is eating. And Rupa Goswami also says, "I want millions of tongues to taste the holy name." So there is a comparison made between food and the holy name and the pastimes as well. So they're non-different. The prasadam and the pastimes and the name and everything are non-different. So bhukta avashesha, bhakta bhukta avashesha, teen mahabal. The bhakta bhukta avashesha also refers to the topics. From this, all this evidence that I've shown, we can confidently use it as topics of Krishna, received from the authorities, received from the spiritual master. So, purport: all the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from the position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal blissful life of transcendental pleasure. So going on again, what's the time? Oh, 10:20. Okay, that should be the end. आदि लीला सूत्र लिखी सुनो भक्तगण, संक्षेपे लिखिए सम्यक ना जाय लिखन. Sankshepe, in brief. My dear devotees of Lord Chaitanya, let me now write a synopsis of the Ādi Leela. I write of these pastimes in brief because it is not possible to describe them in full. Okay. To fulfill a certain particular desire, Krishna decided to descend to this planet after mature contemplation. I think this one we can leave for the next session. Alright, so until 51, 1 to 51 we have completed today. And with a lot of rant about Indian Bharat history. Yeah. In Sanskrit, the parrot is also known as shuka. When a ripened fruit is cut by the red beaks of such birds, its sweet flavor is enhanced. I never did this before, but maybe because our Shastra says we should try. Okay, so let's look at any questions that we have. Hindus only scroll YouTube shorts. Yeah, so we should make more YouTube shorts and inspire the Hindus. Sir, does mechanical japa of gods do any benefit takes as developing emotions towards them takes time and sometimes feels futile? Okay, first of all, by your language, I feel like you don't have very deep understanding of Vaishnava philosophy because not all gods are the same, not at all. Every other god is actually called demigod, and their power depends on the power of Krishna. Krishna invested them with the power. They are not equal to Krishna, not even such greatest of demigods like Lord Shiva, not Brahma. So doing the japa of Durga Nam or Shiva Nam or Brahma's Nam or Ganesh is not at all the same, not even close. The same compared with Krishna's name, Krishna Japa, Krishna Nama Japa. So chanting of Hare Krishna mantra is way above any fruitive rituals. So you can, if you read Bhagavad Gita, you will understand more why I'm saying this. 7th chapter, 28th to 23rd verse, 9th chapter, 23rd verse, 9th chapter. Actually, you can read 21, 22, 23, 23 especially. Um, Even 1840, 713. So I suggest you read the Bhagavad Gita as it is. You purchase it from an ISKCON temple and start reading. And you'll understand first of all. So, mechanical japa of gods. I mean, let's take even Hare Krishna. Yeah, if you chant with understanding, with feeling, the more you chant, the more you will be able to understand what you're reading, especially of Prabhupada's books. I would suggest you strictly keep to Prabhupada's books because otherwise you're going to have this distorted version of things, distorted philosophy. So that is important. And you read Prabhupada's books, and when you chant, then it will help you. Krishna will give you intelligence to understand Prabhupada's books, and with that increased understanding, then your faith in the holy name gets even more increased in the whole process of Krishna consciousness, not just chanting, every facet of it. And that faith will increase your faith in chanting, and when you chant more nicely, and that will increase your intelligence, and you will understand even more deeper. And this way, it will be a virtuous circle upwards. So you, for now, what I suggest is you read Bhagavad Gita as it is, or even Signs of Self-Realization. If you prefer in Hindi, you can read the Atma Sakshatkar Ka Vigyan, which is Signs of Self-Realization in Hindi. So you read Prabhupada's books first and start chanting Hare Krishna on the japa beads. Then you will become purified. Saharsh Singh, sir, I visit Hanuman temple near me very frequently. And what do? Pray to him for strength. To do what? So that you can do your material activities nicely. So I'm not ridiculing you, but this is the method in which people are going to see Hanuman. Hanuman is not interested in promoting your material desires. He's interested in Sri Ram. That's it, and he's interested in taking you to Ram. Yes, in that way, Hanuman will guide you to a proper devotee. And since you have gone to Hanumanji, and Hanumanji is quite merciful to you, he has brought you to the association of devotees where you can actually learn. Now make use of this association, these classes, and take up Srila Prabhupada's books, study of his books seriously, chant Hare Krishna, and then Hanuman will be actually satisfied with you when you are chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. That is what he wants. He doesn't want you to pursue some stupid goals in this material world. Hanuman has nothing to do with that. So we should all pray to Hanuman to give us the strength to serve Ram under any, you know, despite any challenge that may come our way. So we need Hanumanji's blessings. But for Krishna's service, for Ram's service, not for our own life. Oh, give me strength so that I'll get job and I can maintain my family better way. Hanuman is not interested. First of all, he is himself brahmachari, and also he is not interested in all these material affairs. How to become Krishna conscious? Okay? Shreyas Kulkarni, may God bless you so that you stop ranting about some other man and realize your own self. So may God bless you that you read some Bhagavad Gita and get some intelligence and learn how to even talk. First of all, what to speak of in spiritual circles, I know what you're referring to, my comment on Asadguru. Hmm. My statement is completely based on Shastra, our scriptures, perfect science, which you're not aware of. You're being fooled by this man. So please don't be fooled. Read Bhagavad Gita for yourself, because Krishna is the greatest teacher. Krishna doesn't approve of this nonsense that he is speaking. So we will continue to talk. We will rant. If you're not interested, if you want to say whatever you want, you can say whatever you want. We don't care. We will speak the truth. Sudhanshu Kunwar. Prabhuji, there is a city near Mumbai where Mahaprabhu came called Nalasopar. But Portugal attacked there and destroyed the entire city and ancient temple, but today no one knows about him. Wow. These are the things I would like to see revived. It'll be very nice if somebody can, take up in their own way, this. Our mission is to first, you know, propagate the philosophy and all this, bring the attention, but also the revival of these places are very important, and that's the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami to revive these places. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did the same thing with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's places that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited in South India when he went on the tour. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's dream was to consecrate 108 places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been. Consecrate means he would establish this memorial there with the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, footprint of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I mean, like a charan this thing. So that there he writes a description of what happened here and like that. And in some places he actually established a Gaudiya Math temple also there. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very serious about this because he knows what challenges his father Bhaktivinoda Thakur went through in reviving the birth site of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is Mayapur. How much Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to go through, study of archival maps and do a lot of interviews and a lot of study and fieldwork research to find the actual place of Mayapur. And finally got it confirmed by Jagannath Das Babaji. So he understood the importance of proper record keeping. And he did that. That's why in his Anubhashya, Chaitanya Charitamrita commentary, he gives extensive information about geographical and political information. Political boundaries information. What city, what railway station, what this and that. He took very strategically those landmarks which are which we can hope to stay for a long time, railway stations and things like that. So in that way, the information can stay relevant to much further into the future. So similarly, not only that, he went and tried to consecrate 108 temples, but he did not finish it. I think he did about, maybe, I don't know how many he did, I forgot the number. And I don't know if it was done, but I think the Gaudiya Math devotees later on, I think they did some of the rest of them. I don't know if they finished 108 altogether, but so these places have to be revived, along with the history of that place, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did and what these great acharyas did, not just to revive the place only, the structure, but also the knowledge regarding that place and how it is connected to our Vaishnava culture. So this has to be done. Okay, so next. And he's saying, I live in that place, in that same place, and only our Vaishnava community knows about that. So since you're there, so maybe you find authentic records. Don't just find some speculative records. Authentic records, whatever research you can do, and keep a record of it, and maybe you can publish it as an article. And in fact, we're starting a medium. I already started it, but I never really got anyone to contribute in that. But in the medium.com, which is a social media for writers, we want to start. Actually, my dream is to start a magazine there, an online kind of newsletter, kind of like a blog, where all our ASCAM devotees can contribute articles. And if you can get some authentic information, it has to be authentic. I don't want wild tales about something. We don't want that. Authentic records, whatever. Okay, you have a place. Okay, what do the folklore say? Okay, that is one thing. And are there any records kept? maybe in the local libraries or local some temples or somewhere. And if something like that, so whatever it is, I don't say you go out of your, if you can find time, if you can do that, that'll be good. See, so next time when we come on a pilgrimage, we can also visit when we go going into that area, that part. We can, take the pilgrims there and then, explain this to all our devotees. Okay, this is what happened, and this devotee has made the story prominent now, and this is the story. Mahaprabhu came here, and this that. We can always go there, right, on our way to more important places of pilgrimages, more established places of pilgrimage. So we can revive like that. Hmm. Which can maybe live in a vlog later on, like a video format. So it can take on different, and this is how it will spread. So I think that is important. And then you can write this article and post it in our medium.com, and then let that article stay, and people can refer to it at any time in the future. Hmm. Srikant Tupurani. Genome of Indians is totally different from that of Iranians and Europeans. Indians with fair skin are no way connected to Iranians or Europeans. It's better to accept the truth. We are not here to divide. I don't know. I don't. I'm not into this whole narrative. This whole kind of arguments. It is useless because our thing is to actually unite everyone: Europeans, Indians, Iranians, everybody, Arabians, Australians, tribals, whoever are there. We have to unite under the banner of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hmm. So it doesn't. We don't mind. We don't care about what genome is or whatever. You know. There is also pastime of Govindaraja Swami and Kulodgunga Chola. I don't know what that is also. Yeah, so I mean, we should have all this. Who would keep the records of Srila Prabhupada? Well, we have already. I don't know his previous life, but there is a book called Leelamrita, and there is a Leelamrita as it is, which is Prabhupada's own a compilation of Prabhupada's own references to his life. There is this book, and another called Leelamrita, which apparently has a lot of distorted facts, but you can get a good idea. Of course, he had his own. Some people actually criticize that a little bit here and there. But I read both Leelamrita and Leelamrita as it is. I read both. Please, yes. Unreal Engine is a good choice. I think so. We should, I mean, we should have devotees doing this kind of, we should have a team, a whole team doing this content creation. We can even hire people, I mean, but devotees should manage and direct the whole thing and see something like this should be done. Okay, Divya Krishna. There is a thesis submitted by Department of Sociology on the explosion of Hare Krishna movement in Singapore, describing taking root and Prabhupada's era. There, maybe, but I don't know. I need to see. I think I know about something like that, but I think it was also kind of misrepresented in a way. I have seen that PDF. I have not read the whole thing. Yeah, it is good from a third man's perspective. I mean, third person's perspective outside of the movement, and we may build on that something. Okay. Who's this? Short Skak GF. Can you say about your experience of dhyana? Or you don't have any experience? I don't know why you want. Of course, every devotee has experience, right? When we read the biography of acharyas, we can understand how artificial we are. That is another reason why we should read the acharyas biography, because then we will have a much lesser estimation of ourselves. Otherwise, we are thinking we are this huge topmost devotee that deserves the respect of the entire universe and all the millions of universes. And even I think maybe even the residents of Vaikuntha must pay obeisances to us. We think like that. That is because of our stupidity. Absolute neophytes do like that. And if we only read the pastimes of devotees, then we will know how stupid we are and how actually insignificant we are. Divya Krishna Maharaj, what's the difference between envy and jealous as described in Prajalpa mood of envy, jealousy, and pride? Envy and jealous. Envy is usually there for somebody who is superior. Oh, he has that I don't have. Jealous is when somebody is like a competitor, kind of in the same realm, but I'm jealous of that person. Kind of, slight difference can be used simultaneously. I mean, synonymously as well. But then I think language experts will say that there is slight difference. Like I envy his talent, for example. That means it may not be vicious. I just feel that, in a respectful way. But I'm jealous of his talent. That is a more denigrating way. That can be another difference. So, but anyway, it's always in material world. It always ends up negatively, because even if it is positive, ultimately the whole material world is negative anyway. In Krishna Seva, it is different. One can be envying another devotee's position and seeking their mercy so that I can also go to that position. So that way, that is Vaikuntha consciousness. How do I get the remote? I mean, devotee association Prabhu. I live in remote area. Namayata Prabhu already. Please join our Telegram group. Yes, that is for especially boys, I mean, bhaktas, men, male devotees. Oh no. I have a question. This person is a troublemaker, always arguing. I am suffering from PTA, GSD, post traumatic Gaudiya stress disorder. Okay, then you go to hell. Always nonsense. I think you will, you will suffer from post traumatic Gaudiya stress disorder if you commit offenses. Then of course you will become, your association with Gaudiya Vaishnavism will become post. Like you have left. So if you leave, that means something is wrong with you. And I mean, everybody I think here in the live stream can say that something is seriously wrong with you. You say joking, I don't care. You you think it's a joke, this class? So you have to know how to talk. Okay, so I think that's the end of it. Thank you very much. जय श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय. गौर पूर्णिमा की जय. चैतन्य चरितामृत की जय. कृष्णदास कविराज गोस्वामी की जय. श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. हरि हरि बोल. हरे कृष्ण.